Hi, hello everyone. Happy new moon and welcome to the Magdalene Mysteries. Thank you for waiting. For those of you who were here for a while, I just want to say that, as always, it's an honor to be here. And especially today, there is so much energy that is coming in with this podcast. And so a lot of things were happening, even leading up to it. This is Shannon Port. We're here for the Magdalene Mysteries on the Goddess Report on the Taurus new moon. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we'll be doing today. I want to set it up so that you have an understanding of where we're going and how this will work so that you can relax and enjoy and understand how this will be made available for you. I just want to take a moment to take a deep breath because literally there is just so much energy, even on the planet right now. And I'm sure most of you who are here know that and understand that. So the Magdalene Mysteries is bigger than I could have ever even imagined. The last video we did was Mars and the Mother Mary Mysteries, and I thought that was big because that we did that for the new moon total eclipse in Aries, and the energy that came through. First of all, in the lecture itself, but as that event happened on the planet was just so big and profound, and it kind of even after I announced I'd be doing this for the second lecture, I'd be doing the Magdalene Mysteries. I had a bit of a course change because of the energy that's changing, and I really am excited to tell you about it. I just want to make sure that you can hear me because I don't want to continue on if for any reason you can't hear me. I'm getting new equipment, but for right now, I'm in a new location and I have some different things going on. So I just want to make sure I'm going to take a peek down. Um, and I'm just really excited to connect with you today. So please feel free to say hi. There's a lot. So we're going to be here for a while today. And I will, in just a moment, I'll kind of set us up and let you know how it will work. But I'll just take a moment to say hello first. And thank you because there were a lot of delays or reschedules for this video, and I'll let you know why. All right. It's lovely to see all of you. It's so good, and you can hear me. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna have one sip of water, and then we will get started. So it looks like everything is adjusted correctly. Okay, so we're here for the Magdalene Mysteries, and they're following the Mother Mary Mysteries, Mars and the Mother Mary Mysteries. And today, with the Taurus new moon, we'll be working with Venus. Um, I'm going to tell you about the series we're doing. I want to first let you know that I have the two links here for you today, and I'm going to say a couple words about those because then that will lead into talking about the lectures that I'm going to be doing on the Art of the Feminine platform this year on YouTube. So, just to let you know, I did not have these links last time. They're available in the description underneath for those of you who have been waiting. And I'll just say very quickly that we re-recorded Light Body Tantra in January before I moved. It's just been crazy from since that period. And it's a profound body of wisdom. And we did it. We did a 7-week course in 7 days, and there's probably about 19 hours of recorded lecture, meditation, and activation. There's been a change. I had planned to leave that on my website and to keep it as a course that was always available for people who just wandered into my work or for people who were waiting for the right time to do it. This is what has happened. And especially with the energy on the planet, there's just so much shifting right now. after looking at the course and really sitting with it and seeing what's in it, it's not meant to be just left out all the time on Art of the Feminine, the website. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because I sent out an email, and I think most people got it that wanted it. But if you're one of the people who is waiting and wanted to do it thinking it would be available, the link is below. It will be available. Today is May 7th. I will keep it up through the weekend, through May 12th. So that will give you a few days to see if you'd like to do it, and then sign up for it. You'll be put in. But after this weekend, I won't be offering that public. It will go into the Divine Feminine Wisdom School, which is the school that we opened last summer. And it will be available as part of the curriculum there. There will be other things that come, but the reason being, and we're talking about this very thing today, the nature of that work around the regenerative force, which is Magdalene, and the state of things on our planet right now, the state of the culture and everything that's happening, all of the shifts, including the culture war. We went really, really deep, and that's meant to be. It needs to be a sacred space for to go into understanding that we're working at a deep level. Let me see if there's anything I can say about it. We're just addressing the nature of that force, the feminine force, through the divine feminine wisdom. And so this was the founding work of Art of the Feminine, going back many, many years. And so we've been building with it, and we went very deep. So that Light Body Tantra will be available underneath until this Sunday. I'll leave it up until I think it's May 12th. The other thing is that if you do that course and you're interested in applying for the 1-year school, you can apply that, whatever payment you make, and I left it at the lower payment. You can apply it towards the school. So that's the other link. The other link is, and this is all connected to Magdalene because she's the founder of all of it. The other link is the Divine Feminine Wisdom School. It's a year-long immersion and professional study program in this work. I have not had a link for it until now, a legitimate link. So that link, if you are interested in, if this is your life's work and you want to study, there's a nice write-up that gives you the energy and the feel of it. I also won't be leaving that link up for a long time because I usually don't keep those links public, but we're enrolling for spring. So, and I mentioned that last time, if you would like to take a look at it, please do. Lindsay is available for questions, and I think she books 15 or even 30-minute appointments at no charge to answer your questions. And she's lovely. I was just speaking with her, and she's absolutely genuine, lovely, and really easy and powerful also to talk to. So now those links are below. You could also find them on Instagram at Art of the Feminine. Okay, now, just to let you know what we are doing here on YouTube. And so I just really ask that if you enjoy these videos, that going forward, please share them. If you know women, if you know men, if you know groups of people that you think would really enjoy this, it would be very helpful and very appreciated if you let people know, if you receive from this work and there's a stream that activates you and inspires you, please feel free to share them and let people know that for this year we're doing the Divine Feminine Wisdom lecture series. It's based on Divine Feminine astrology, which is a very built up platform here. I announced last week or last video, it's already been almost a month now, it's hard to believe, but I announced that starting with the solar new year, we started with the Aries new moon, and now we're at the second new moon of the year, the Taurus new moon, that I would really now, after my move and after grounding into a totally new energy, I'm going to start to really share Divine Feminine astrology. and all of the dimensions of it, because it's very rich and it's archetypally coded in ways that involve several platforms of wisdom that are interacting with each other and are the fluent, what we always called the language of the goddess, meaning it's the archetypal language and it's the symbols and the codes that is the complete foundational wisdom of Art of the Feminine and the Divine Feminine Wisdom School. All of this work is held in there. We work with Venus. We work with Venus and symbols and the energies and the impulses that are received by really working with this knowledge, which requires the artist. The difference between the feminine wisdom and some of the male streams or the male master streams is that oftentimes you'll hear male masters or teachers say, you don't need your imagination. Just be here now. Just tune in to the self and move beyond all Maya, all illusion, which is very real and powerful and absolutely necessary for us to develop and understand the foundation of who we are, the energy that is truly makes up the self or the identity of of our God self or our higher self. That in the divine feminine wisdom, which is the Magdalene Mysteries, we work with the movement and the dance and the sound and the light of the moving picture. We work with art and we work with live, live demonstration and acting out. Always have been saying a lot lately. I have a theater background, and you can also find this work even in film, in dance, in ritual, and in holidays, in gathering. In holidays are filled with symbols and codes. These are the teachings that make up the divine feminine wisdom because they are how we use our creative imagination. And so the creative imagination is the feminine principle. Everything we do here is about the regeneration and activation of the feminine principle, or what we call in its fully um, expressed state, the divine feminine principle. And so, taking it back to what we're doing here, this year, we're going to go through, and every time we meet will be a really rich lecture. And the last one was long. It was longer than what I've done on YouTube before. I think it was over 2.5 hours. I will be time stamping the video, which is something I used to do, and YouTube used to do it automatically, but I haven't done it recent in a couple years, and it just makes it really easy for you in a very long video to come back and digest it and redigest it and just look through the chapter titles and know exactly where you want to go. Especially in a very long video, you can just come back and see where to go to find. You might listen to it once and be like, I really want to go back and hear that again. You'll be able to do that very easily because these will be longer videos. And so I invite you to get your tea, get your coffee, get your journal, whatever it is that you want to have with you today, because we'll go on for a while. And get your meditation cushion, whatever it is, so that you feel comfortable and so that you can just really sit and enjoy. Um, uh, I have my notifications on. Okay, so so we'll be meeting often, and every video you'll know ahead of time what it will be about. But we're going into the archetypes, and we're working how we work here and how we've been working here. This is also work that I teach on many different levels. So Okay. And also I want to say that today is May 7th. I had originally planned to publish Light Body Woman today. So I'm just going to say a quick word about that and then we're going to go dive in. Um this is a really beautiful day today. This new moon in Taurus, which is my new moon. I have a lot of energy in Taurus, so it's one of my favorite new moons of the year. Um I had originally planned to publish today, and this is what I'm going to say about that. This lecture series is the perfect preparation. It's coming very soon. I just, after moving, I had to get grounded and get everything set up so that I need a 2-week span where I can completely focus on that, and then it will happen. And so it's coming soon, so stay posted. But this Divine Feminine lecture series is the emotional and the intellectual preparation for what's coming in the book. The book is a divine feminine codex in the highest meaning of those words and the meaning of codex, truly. And so the lectures are now going to start to correspond to the book in ways that I haven't been able to do before because I wasn't quite there. And so that's what we're headed for this year. Okay, let's just take a moment and then we will begin. Just going to ask you to take a deep breath in. There's a really strong presence of Magdalene and her archetype today. And so we just, with gratitude, open our hearts to receive whatever it is that we're all meant to receive through this lecture, this download, this live stream. And so I thank all of you for being here and for being part of this wisdom, her wisdom. It's really the course, the directional change that happened between the last video now is all about Magdalene. And so I'm really excited to talk about it with her. Let's just do I am in the 7 directions. We'll do it at a good pace and then we'll begin. Today we'll be working with the axis of Taurus and Scorpio for Magdalene. I had planned it originally on the Scorpio full moon, which happened on lunar Beltane, but with everything happening, we had to wait for a moment. So just saying I am in the 7 directions, surrounding yourself with the light of the Christos Sophia, Magdalene's highest archetype, saying I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am unto me. And just taking a deep breath in and to hold for a moment. And just as you're holding your breath, ask yourself to call in an archetype that you associate with Magdalene and her mysteries, or the divine feminine, or anything that holds a goddess energy in your life. It's the feminine principle that we are really, really healing, balancing, and activating at this time. When you're ready, exhale your breath out. I am, I know, I am, I know, I am. All right. So I'm going to start with a little story. And for whatever reason, it just came in that this is a kind of a setup for the video, and it's a personal story. I'm starting to tell just a few more details as we go about how Art of the Feminine came to be. And so there's many things that I haven't shared before, and I feel like sharing little bits as we go will give those who are present just an idea of where. I told you someone had written on a video recently, what are your credentials, where did you come from? So I'm going to be sharing a few personal things just to let you know how I arrived at this space. I have recently shared that my background growing up and going to the schooling, the education I had, and the religious tradition that I was part of, and various details like that, which are very much a part of this work. We worked with the rosary when we did the Mother Mary Mysteries, and we will continue to speak on that, adding new information to that. And then moving forward, I've talked about the time I spent training in the Venusian arts, the actual performing arts. And I'm going to just tell a bit of a story about I spoke last time. I mentioned that I had studied for a period, or worked with for a period, with a male spiritual teacher. And after I told that, I was going through a journal that I had at that time, and it jumped off the page, remembering the some of the words that were spoken through him to me way back in 2006 when we first met. Now, these are sacred words, and they're not something that I've shared before, really, but I honor that, but I will take a certain aspect of what was shared, because at this time, it's it all is coming together, and what's happening at Art of the Feminine and with the school and with all of it. If you're on the spiritual path, you will often find that the clues come in the very beginning, meaning at the time you're really awakening or really turning the corner and doing certain things, the words come. At that time, you may or may not be able to fully digest them. And that's why when we work archetypally here, we always say, what is meant to grow? What seeds are meant to, sprout and grow into a tree and bear flowers and fruit in your heart? May those stay with you. And whatever words are not meant to be present, through the power of your own higher self, may they fall away. But when you look back over your life, you'll realize there were very powerful seeds that were given, that begin to grow and bear fruit. And it's not sometimes until you taste the fruit or see the flower that you look and you can't believe it was there. But this is something simple, and it's profound. So when this was in New York City, and at that time it was 2006, and I believe my son was a little over 1 year old. My son was born in 2005, and I had left New York City. I had been there up until that point, living there for many years, and moved to a country town about an hour and a half away. And so I had come into contact with some teachings that were part of a lineage that I had been pursuing and studying and working with. And when I came into contact with the understanding that the person who had written this work was living in New York, I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. And I did what I could to make an appointment and go and see this person, who I considered as a spiritual master of a certain work and a certain lineage on this planet. And so the first time that I met with this man, I'll never forget it. And I was so excited to be there. because I was already teaching light body yoga. It was 2006, and I had been teaching light body yoga in New York City, but it was new, and I had a young child, and I knew I was working with the divine feminine. I knew that light body yoga was coming in. I know why. I know what I want to tell you. I had light body yoga, and light body yoga had come through dreams and through an amazing, amazing experience. And then I had the connections for teaching yoga in New York City because I had taught New York yoga in New York City at that point already for years. So I started teaching it to audiences that were, I looking back, I can't believe I was doing it, but it was just, I had the impulse, it was given, and I was already working with fertility. I had been doing fertility rituals, and there's a story behind that. This is all Magdalene and how this work has come, because Magdalene, as many of you know, was the impulse and the founder, the patron saint of light body yoga. So I found light body yoga in 2003. I meet with this man in New York City in 2006, and I'm over the moon. I can't believe, my heart is pounding, and I can't believe I'm walking into this apartment on Park Avenue, and I can't believe it. In my mind, I'm thinking, this is it. I found a master. This is it. Like, this is the last thing I need. And because I felt that, coming into contact and studying spiritual wisdom, I felt like I need a lineage. I felt like I need to attach what I'm doing to somebody else, because I understand how the stream of wisdom is, and have deep respect for the transmission and the chain that links, one being to another. It's truly a profound way of passing on information and being lifted into a higher stream in order to, unite with a force that's greater than yourself. And so I went in, and I was so excited and so happy, and it was such a great experience. But let me just see the order I want to tell this. I told him what I was doing, and I'm remembering now, and I won't say everything, but I'll just say the way he worked was he looked at my planets and my aura, and I think even my hands. And we sat and spoke for a few minutes, and he asked me, I believe, three things that I wanted to, why I was there and what I wanted. And so we spoke for a few minutes, and I said, I want, okay, just one moment. He told me that within my aura, and that's the way it was spoken, because that's the way we work, and with the archetypal code and template, he told me that I had been born with the power of the word. He said the word is already awakened in your aura. And he said, in this lifetime, he said, the people who I work with are very, very high, at a very high level of spirituality. And they have come to me, and he said that's their last time on the wheel, and we're doing a very high level of work. And then he said, but in your field is a contract that you cannot escape. And it is this lifetime that you will realize. He said, the students that come are meant to have a physical, spiritual teacher in their lifetime, and it's absolutely meant to be. And then he told me, he said, but in this lifetime, your spiritual teacher from within is going to be the one who leads. And so he was basically saying, you're on your own. He said, but I will teach you how to project your word because you will need it. He said, you'll be working with millions of people and you have to know how to project your word. And this was good news and not good news for me. I remember feeling so inside without showing it, let down because I thought I was coming to bow at the feet and to really, really go all the way because I felt so ready for it. And I knew, and I'd been working spiritually since I was a little girl. And the only thing I said to him after that, he said, I will teach you, come and see me and we'll work. And that's exactly what I did for 3 years. I went and worked with mantra. But what I said to him was, but I don't have a lineage. And I'm only speaking this because it is directly related to the Magdalene Mysteries and this platform. And I looked at him, and it was just the first words that came to me because I was very concerned with Light Body Yoga. It was starting to take off, and I felt like I had to attach with someone. So I said, I don't have a lineage. And he looked at me and he said, you are the lineage. And he said, there's no escaping what you have come to do. So at that time, I I couldn't I wrote this all down and I heard it and I knew I was teaching. But if you've ever been in a situation where you have your heart so set on something, and I'm pretty determined, I'm a Taurus and I have a lot of Venus, I have a strong will. Like I was determined. And I had the whole thing worked out in my mind how it was going to go. And I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to be part of a group and I wanted to give all the spiritual energy that I had and let someone else lead. I thought I can still do this, but I'll be safe that way. Um, so I wrote it down and I thought, well, okay, I was excited. I made my next appointment. I'm like, I'm going to go back and do this mantra work. And that's what we did. I left with my practice that day and I went straight into it, working for, I think the first time I had to work for 120 days without missing in order to activate. But that was in 2006. And I worked with a mantra, with the power of the word for 3 years and love this work. I still work with it, but with him for 3 years. And felt like I was on my own and did not digest what was said, but because you can't really take that in. You hear it, but I wanted to get busy and start working. So I wrote it down and I would think of it now and then, but I still couldn't accept it. And so I was teaching fertility. I was teaching light body yoga and in New York City. I just found some old pictures of it. It's pretty wild. And then out of Light Body Yoga came the Art of the Feminine platform and Light Body Woman. So what started out as fertility, which is Taurus, and also it became the new human sexual paradigm, which was the specific template of my aura in this lifetime. So we all have a template and we can find it in our astrological chart. And there's other ways as well. And we were working with some higher levels as well. Your template, when you know how to read it, it's right there. And so this work was about healing the regenerative force. But I must add, after I started working with him and working with the word, it wasn't long after that my son's father and I were split up. And it was something that came very unexpectedly. And it was a very profound moment in time, a shattering moment in time. take a moment for Magdalene. That's what happens sometimes. It was the new level of working and at that time working with the word that immediately shifted my life. I had already had many, many, many shifts throughout my lifetime, but this was unexpected. And it came at a time when I thought that the spiritual platform was about to bloom. I thought I had made it past the hard things, and there had been many. But as I came into the richest and deepest part of this journey, going to the next level and the deeper level, everything I had was taken. Everything. And I won't, I didn't plan to even get emotional. But I think the level of speaking of it and remembering the whole energy of it, it was profound. And so I share this with you to just understand that we're human beings and everything in life is leading us deeper into why we're here and the meaning of our work and our purpose, especially if you're in this work. So what happened at that time, and that was 2007. For two years, everything was stripped to where I had nothing. I had my son, and I had left New York City. I had left everything I know. My friends mostly moved to LA. My sisters that had been living in New York City went back to the West Coast, and it was a bare time. And what I did during that time was go through the hard aspect of it because there were serious human challenges with power that I had to face. I couldn't shrink and disappear or hide in spirituality. And some of you might know what I'm talking about. We can't hide, especially when we're working in spirituality. Spirituality is beautiful and powerful and coats us in truth, the real deal when it's the real deal. But it doesn't prevent us from having to walk through the fire of what is going to, we call it here, we talk about transmuting the astral body of Lilith, which is what we're going to really focus on in the next video. But those things, when I say crack open the heart, there's a level of energy in the female heart and in the male heart. But in this situation, it was holding the mysteries around motherhood and marriage and art and spirituality of the priestess all in one initiation, and power, learning how to stand up and face what can be the darkest challenges that come towards us on levels that feel um like the greatest assault or attack against the heart humanly known. It's at that time when we have to embrace our practice and yet not fear and give ourselves to trust and surrender to the divine within. This is pure Magdalene and her archetype, while transmuting the substance of the vehicle. And those transmutations happen through these challenges. We now call them, I call them the seven seals of Magdalene, or the goddess sacraments, when the heart is sacrificed on the altar and it's deepened and the vision opens and the knowledge and the understanding is birthed through the power of what we call the Sophia Logos, the divine word. So this is something I felt really, it just spontaneously came in to share today because of the work that I'm doing in the world and putting more things out, just the understanding of how serious, not how serious, how it's been built. It's been built through a deep, deep commitment. And as I was told, there's no escaping it in this lifetime. I couldn't run or hide from this work. I was taken through the stages of initiation, right down to the last stage, which was a stage of deep isolation that had to happen. It was more of a Saturn crone stage, which only makes sense now that I've moved into, even this move into a new area is to activate this vortex in the West And so, okay, this work is the resurrection and the rise of the divine feminine principle. As people know, what is happening in our world right now, the solar eclipse that we had, the total solar eclipse in Aries, and we talked profoundly about the eclipse of the Christ horse and the eclipse of the light of the sun in matter. It's the state of human consciousness right now. For much of humanity, it's still totally eclipsed. That contact with the inner light or the inner power, the inner logos, the word, has not taken place for the planet. We are in the process of various groups and teachings and true teachers beginning to hold that network as things shift. We are moving fast now. It's it's undeniable, the changes that are coming and how quickly the old is breaking down. It's breaking down rapidly. Now, it's an interesting thing because at the same time that civilization is kind of collapsing backwards, we have this we have this technology and this AI that seems to be advancing us. And so it's like this disparity between this total advancement of the human intellect and of technology with an AI, which is so big now. It's changed everything just in the past couple of weeks with the collapse. And so let me just take a moment with that. If there's anything to say, well, the reason I entered with telling you a little bit about my personal story was because that is each and every one of you that is awake and that is grounded in to the deep understanding that things are changing and that you are the divine light. You are. I mean, this is the work of the male masters as well. You are the divine embodied in form. And so once you know that, it's how to face my human journey, which I just shared some intimate details about mine. And there's many more stories after that for another day for Lilith. So it's how to understand the fact that we're human. We have to be human, and we have a karmic diary that we're carrying. It's in our field, these coordinates of things that are going to happen, that are going to I shared a deep one because I want you to know the big things that happen can give you strength and courage and the fortitude to go deeper into your practice, whatever that practice is. I worked with a woman recently who contacted me, and it was so powerful. She was contacting me because she was working with an issue around health. And we were talking about prayer and the power of prayer, because that's been a huge theme for us here for this past year for a reason. Prayer is an organizing power. Prayer is sacred union. My chanting background working with mantra and the word is tantric. It's prayer is tantra. When you pray, you're performing when you really pray. It's tantra. And it's the merging of the mind and the heart. You hear people call it, I think, mind heart coherence in the sort of psychological and even, the sciences often refer to the different biosciences that are out there, talk a lot about mind heart coherence as the great solve all for everything. It truly is, but that's prayer. But this woman told me, we wanted to set up a prayer ritual for her. And I asked her what she felt drawn to. And it was the most beautiful thing because she said something I didn't expect. Because I was ready to go into different prayers or mantras and I said, "Was there a prayer style?" I didn't know if she had a religious background or not, or what. I know her as a goddess, and she said, "I am in the seven directions is my prayer," and I just like it was so profound to hear her say that because she knew it. She said, "That's what I pray," And there are so many people, there are thousands of people, and I hear from people all the time. I hear people, their kids pray it. And working with the seven directions was also something I did with this male spiritual teacher that I just mentioned. It is, and we do I am. I am in the seven directions was birthed here in a training a long time ago, I think in 2012. But when you say I am in the seven directions, you're calling in the power of Christos, of the Christ. The Christ is the great mediator. It's the divine light of the collective higher self. It's the it's the higher template of the human being. But as the Christ force is also the high priest of the entire creation, meaning it's a very, very powerful force. And we work with the feminine Christ also as the high priestess of the entire creation. And so we really, with Magdalene, are calling in the feminine aspect of that. But Magdalene, as you would hear in various lineages, this is said in a more religious way, but she bows only to the risen Savior. She bows only to the risen Savior. That's an archetype. And when we do, oftentimes we do a powerful Magdalene video every year on her feast day. We often say Magdalene saw Christ at the tomb. She was the first to see him. This is just coming in now. I'm going to share it. So, vision, we work with vision here. Magdalene was the first to see Christ. She was the first to see her own divine image as the risen Savior. She had the understanding of the great mother, the divine mother, and we often refer to Bina as her Sephirah on the tree of life. Bina is the sphere of Saturn, and it's the sphere of vision and higher perception or understanding. You can have wisdom on the tree. Wisdom is Hokmah, but which is one of the supernal Sephirah, but you can't, wisdom without understanding of that wisdom is dead wisdom. It's not alive. It's not a living current. This brings me to this work. Magdalene is the living current. We say that here we work only with the life force and the life stream of the feminine Christ, the masculine as well. But this is my specific, going back to him saying, you are the lineage. I knew from the time I was a little girl, I had my first rosary as a child. And the rosary, by the way, is a mantra. And I already knew Magdalene and Mary as a little girl because I was born into this traditional and classical religion, but she was already on little trinkets on my dresser, talking to her. That is the feminine Christ lineage. Magdalene holds the wisdom flame of the church of the goddess. So this is something we're going to address today with Magdalene's Mysteries. We'll be looking at Scorpio, Taurus, and Beltane through this period, this window that this lecture is addressing. Magdalene is the divine feminine as a human woman, and as she lives in all beings, male and female. But with everything happening on our planet right now, it's specifically important also to understand her femaleness and her womanhood. In the esoteric wisdom, she's placed in charge of the legacy and of the lineage of the wisdom teachings. We call it the divine feminine wisdom. So understanding that she had the power to see Christ first, and even the church. This past year, I went through the entire Catechism. It was part of my full circle, which I'll talk a tiny bit about, which is also part of what came after that full circle. Okay. Oh, where was I? Okay. So Magdalene, wow, just one moment. So we call this work here the divine feminine wisdom. This is the divine feminine wisdom lectures, and it's just always how I've referred to the work at Art of the Feminine. It's the wisdom flame, and Magdalene is the patron saint of this work. She's the living wisdom, and there's many things that come in with that. And she's her mysteries are going to be throughout this next year because it's so rich. And next we'll be doing Lilith. So let's just take a moment here and okay. I think I'm going to tell you what has happened recently because I'm going to take a second and show you this. All right, it's really important though to know that what going back to what I said, you need to have your practice and cling to that. We said that's non-negotiable, a rich one and a real one. We have plenty of practices here. In fact, the whole Divine Feminine Wisdom School, the Divine Feminine Wisdom School, and I'll just say a thing about it. That is the layer upon layer of what I've been teaching for the past, so since 2003. And I didn't even know at the time how it was creating the entire body, but it's all there and it's getting more and more powerful every day, and it helped me to understand why the way I returned to doing the rosary last March was out of nowhere. It's nothing I would have ever seeked out on my own. And this is what I want to tell you. I didn't realize we've talked about how there would be a revival in religions, and again, this is all connected to Magdalene. But I'm realizing now it's popping up everywhere, and I'm going to speak to that. And also the rosary is kind of in the collective. I've saw it when I started doing it, I had no idea, but I guess it's out there right now and I've seen it. So there is this collective revival and awakening, a lot because of everybody's looking for something to hold on to. Everybody needs their practice. The good thing about the church is this, or religion. I'll speak to the church as the great archetype of the physical temple on this planet. The one thing that's profound, I grew up in it, so I can speak to it about the church, is that there's a lot of stability. And obviously, I'll put a side note. Yes, even the Magdalene laundries, we could talk about that, but there's many, many karmic, um, there's many karmas held with the church as well. Um, I have a karmic contract with the church. And so that's why I'll be referring to it. Meaning I was born into it and embraced the richness of this catechism, which is now spelled out. Knowing also and coming in with Taurus energy that Mother Nature was my goddess. I spent my years back in when I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Little kids could walk out and just go. I just roamed in nature, and if it was raining or snowing, it was going outside to feel her. I had a cherry tree that would blossom cherries every spring, and lilac trees. They all blossomed around the time of my birthday in May, and a ladybug science experiment, and a bumblebee science experiment, and a fish science experiment, and a rock collection. Like I was already coded for the physical aspect of creation and the Magdalene aspect, but I got to see that in the church, and the church has stability. It's the only thing on this planet. I was thinking about this, and it's quite interesting. And this isn't a plug for it at all. I'm relating on an archetypal level. The stability, the consistency, the sacraments, the angelic host, the hierarchy, the art, the holidays, the holy days are so unified in every single part of the world. It doesn't matter where you are. You can walk into a church or a mass and you're going to get, you know what you're going to get, and you're going to be doing the same reading, the same words as everyone else in the world. It's quite profound. We seek unity and we seek repetition. So I work with mantra. Mantra is repetition. So it's an archetypal code. When you repeat something over and over, your sound body and your body of light start to build up the energies of that power or that life stream or impulse. And as it merges into your heart, and there's a whole science of it, but it begins to actualize within you. People coming together and doing the same ritual over and over, and the same sacraments and the same, there's a sense of unity, and there's a sense of being able to let down and trust. It's father energy. It's like the father in people right now are seeking father energy. Because we work with the divine feminine, obviously, but the father is also so needed. There's most a huge portion of the population is really, really craving to have that structure that stands firm and that has boundaries and that teaches discipline, but love and joy, that teaches how to grow and accomplish and learn and even rise up in power. And in some cases, sometimes we have to learn how to dominate, whether it's our own inner lower nature. We have to learn how to work with it and rise above it, or face it. Rise above sounds so transcendent. We don't transcend here. We transmute. We face it, and we do the polarity integration, which activates the mind and the heart. So there's a reason that is that people are seeking it now. It's a sense of belonging, and it's a sense of understanding that because the church would go take you a little more towards conservatism now. Within the church, there's a huge spectrum. And again, when I say church, I mean basically all religions. I'm using that to represent religion. Although the church is very deep for a reason, meaning it's grounded in to these practices. They don't vary from place to place, but the people in the population goes from the ultra conservative to the very liberal. Within the teachings, there's still things that are not um, that people aren't in agreement with, but it is what it is. It's just like you can have a father or a mother that disagrees with everything you do. They're still your father and your mother. You don't have to turn your back on them or betray them or feel betrayed by them. Sometimes that happens, but in most situations, you're going to have an authority in your life or someone who was an authority that you have disagreements with. So it's the same there. There's a huge consciousness. What I see happening is from within, there's an esoteric awakening, a flowering beginning to happen. There's a huge renewed interest in symbolism, and dare I even say, the cosmos. We'll put it that way. I'm starting to hear, and the people who are talking, there's a lot of people and a lot of podcasters that are just like your everyday people who are gaining a lot of traction. Religious podcasters are huge right now, and that's another thing, because if you look at the comments underneath them, sometimes it's a little scary to see the level of arguments people have over scriptures and practices and who's right. It's pretty unbelievable. But the scholars, there's some really bright scholars right now, and true, I forget what they call it, the apostolic succession, or they're some that have a pretty high wisdom and a true desire to understand the world right now, are beginning to tap into things that I'm pretty shocked at, and I'm seeing it. When I went back and listened to the Catechism, and again, this is through the perspective of Magdalene, I saw it all. So if you don't know what the Catechism is, this is my karmic contract with the church. In the 90s, long after I was out of Catholic school, not that long out actually, but I've only recently gone through it. It starts from the very first 100 years of Christianity, and is every single council is recorded, and every law, every doctrine, every change, every Vatican change is recorded. So when I listened to it, I was in shock, because as someone who's worked with Magdalene, I could see exactly where there's the written tradition and the oral tradition. This is all very important for what we're going into. The written tradition includes sacred scriptures and texts written by people who are thought to be in direct line, or as an apostle or a disciple of Christ, and then the disciples of the disciples. So this is the written tradition. You think of Paul, or you think of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are people who are included because it's no traceable that they trace all the way back to the physical being of Jesus. So there was a point at which, and the Catechism walks you through this, where that church fathers were sitting down and deciding which oral traditions and mystical traditions would be taken in and included in the catechism or the canon of this whole body. And when I was listening to it, I had an out of body experience as if I was there. And it's like I was watching it. This, I know this is far out, but for some of you might get this, because I was in deep meditation and I did this every night for like an hour for a very long time, and I would listen, and I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, but I was integrating what happened and reconciling it with my work. Because if you go to any, even on some of these apps, if you listen to them talk about Magdalene, the very first thing they will say is, oh, we know that her legend and her myth has led to many, many crazy ideas and different schools of thought. But they will always say, but the church knows the absolute truth. And it's okay, but we need you to understand that she was a devout disciple of Jesus, and which is absolutely true. The physical. Now we also work with the archetypal. So I just want to I rarely talk about the physical person, even though she's with us, but also the archetypal. It's all working together. And that's what the divine feminine wisdom helps us to understand. We are working on the astral, on the archetypal level, especially the feminine, which holds the positive polarity on those levels and in the inner plane. As we are seeing physical reality, we talked about last time how the vision of an awakened initiate is creating as it sees. There's a fountain of light coming through the eyes, which are very much in the design of the cosmos, the Milky Way, and many more things. The eyes are sacred. And then we have thine eye be single, the third eye. So understanding this, just jumping back now to the catechism, I could see the moments where now I've even in my mentorships had women that know of certain lineages or races that were, as sometimes you'll hear stolen from or taken from some of the female lineages with the church. And there's some truth to that. I want to say this though. I'm not in a war with the church. I care nothing for that. Nothing. The vibration of the work here is only for the new world and going forward. So we're only integrating what can, exist at this frequency and just letting the rest kind of fall. It's collapsing itself right now. And we'll talk a little bit about that because some of the harder things we will address. But okay, so the knowledge. Okay, so we were talking about I wanted to say people being taken from. What that means, it's really important to understand how humanity works and how the cosmic and the archetypal impulses come in to evolve the human race. And so the church is a divine impulse, as are many, many other things, even though they're flawed. They're absolutely flawed, but there's certain things, there's great works that are accomplished through the organization of the body, the consciousness of humanity. Religion is definitely, the great religions are definitely organization of human consciousness. It takes people from the animal level a little bit more into the awake level where they're thinking about, the God self within and the divine spark, but they're also sometimes using external archetypes or idols to kind of place in the position that will help them to learn or help them to be good and obey and not sin. But in the beginning, there at a certain stage, human beings needed to think there was, even with the gods, that there was this divine authority until they started to understand that the authority is within. And Magdalene is the divine feminine, governs the forces of nature within the human vessel when they are purified. only when, I mean, we can govern them and use them from the carnal side, which is the shadow body of Lilith, and that's what a lot of humanity does, including some of these institutions that sort of fall into that. But the truly awakened vessel of Magdalene is a mothership. She's the command center. She's the central command because of her opening of the heart. That's what we'll talk about with Scorpio and the rising phoenix and the death and resurrection mysteries of the divine feminine. Scorpio is a feminine sign, and Taurus is a feminine sign. And so it's a feminine axis, and they work together. We have Venus in Taurus, and Pluto rules Scorpio. Pluto is Hades in the underworld and death and regeneration. We talked a lot about it in the Bridget video. We talked a lot about the eighth house mysteries because Pluto is now in Aquarius. So we're speaking a little divine feminine astrology. So it's important to understand the ancient ruler of Scorpio is Mars. Everything we said about Mars in the last video, which was the first video of this lecture series, applies also to Scorpio. And so we associate Scorpio because as we came into different correspondences and understandings, but Mars is still deeply Mars with war and blood and eros. Scorpio is the sign of the regenerative force and the sex organs. That's Mars. And so we still have to just remember Scorpio was once Mars. And so that's another Venus and Mars axis. And now it's Venus and Pluto. So let me see if there's anything else about Mars. Well, Mars in Scorpio as the planet of war is the internal war and the eternal internal struggle. It's the internal fight of the mystic and the occultist and the initiate with the carnal forces from the sexual organs. And it's about power. Scorpio is about power. We have to cultivate first human power and then spiritual power. So we talked about last time how the fallen eros and lust force, the eros and war force that we talked about in the last video, which is so loaded. It's called Mars and the Mother Mary Mysteries, and it's time-stamped. We talked about how that fallen impulse was dense, and some of the older mysteries and religious traditions bowed to it, and rightfully so. It was part of the coming of age or waking up. Now, the energy we're working with Mars is the subtle energy. We haven't lost touch with desire and with the earth and with the regenerative force. In fact, just the opposite. We've understood it, and we understood, meaning on the spiritual path, that force also can give birth to the subtle energies of Mother Mary. We called it light body Shakti. And it's through only through the transmutation and resurrection of Mars that we are able to use power and desire and even the fight, the good fight, but running it. We haven't destroyed the temple of the Divine Mother and the Divine Feminine, which is that etheric, light that's around us. We work with the light body teachings, and also I grew up with the resurrection body and the immortal body in Catholicism. It's the same thing. There's many different names, but that subtle energy of beauty and intelligence and like cosmic connection, it's the union of spirit and matter that is only available as we begin to understand these fallen powers. When we say fallen, we could also say descended. So there are some mythos around, the lust frequency and the fall, and they're fabulous. And there's a lot of mythos around Lilith as well, and there's different angles on it, and we'll be looking at those. So Magdalene is the wisdom holder of Scorpio. It was her consciousness that was regenerated so that she could be the first to see the Christ, the image of the risen Savior or the risen Christ. And with Magdalene, going into the Magdalene, this is how we work with it in Light Body Woman. So the way I'm speaking now, this is how wisdom is. There's ancient knowledge everywhere, but once you come into a real stream, there can be a unique law of correspondence that works through that stream that is directly related to the template and the work that's been accomplished there or done, the level of transmutation. And so, for whatever purpose that soul has come in for, everything that happens will be in service to that mission or that purpose. And that's Scorpio too. Total power of the self, the understanding of the arcane wisdom, the mysteries, the secrets, the regenerative force. And this is how we work with Magdalene, that this is a really powerful correspondence. With Scorpio, we work with also Saturn as Kali and the Divine Mother, when the archetype is for Scorpio is death. And in most death archetypes, you'll see the bones and the skeleton and the skull. And there's other imagery as well. That is the energy of Kali and the Divine Mother. And in the work we do here, we always talk about the Divine Mother being the great initiator. She oversees our transmutation, our life and death process, the regeneration of the divine feminine principle. The skull also represents Golgotha. The mysteries of Golgotha are found in, this is how we work with it, in Scorpio. And there's various elements of seeing that, but we directly relate those to Magdalene. And over the centuries, you've seen in the art, you can see this depicted as well. This is what the Golgotha and the skull are also a temple of the divine. Our human skull holds Ruach Elohim on one level, the Holy Spirit. We also have Holy Spirit and Holy Mother Spirit in our heart and in our womb. But we talked about the pineal gland being connected to Mother Mary. It's like a moon. And the moon, and when I work with Taurus and when we work with Lilith next time, we'll be talking about this. There's some profound wisdom here that we'll keep more with Lilith, who's often called the dark moon. So this is so funny. I'm going to say this now. I know it's in these papers somewhere. I'm just going to show you this because I think you're going to not believe how much this is for Magdalene. This is writing from this week. Like, that's how, when I say the energy for Magdalene is, it was like I was just walking day to day, because once you tap in the stream, sometimes you can't escape it. Like that, this male teacher told me, there's no escaping it. It's a contract. Scorpio also, and Saturn is contract. Saturn is karma. Kali is karma. So that the sorrowful or the dark mother governs our karma. Her veil of tears, she's crying for her children that are lost in karma. Now, what is karma? Karma is just the misuse or the ignorant use of the divine feminine principle, or the feminine principle as the descended force. We use it and run it through, the specific word we use here is lust frequency. And lust frequency holds the energy of the, I'll just hold that for a moment and decide where the appropriate place is to put that in, because it connects to some other things. But it's less frequency is obviously the culture is saturated we're saturated in a pornography culture. It's just the fact. It's just the way it is with technology. And I was shown today with reality TV, because I was just looking in the Akashic, where did the big, so early in the 2000s, we started reality TV and technology really exploded. The reason I was looking at this is because I saw the pictures from the Met Gala that happened. Was it last night? It was last night yesterday afternoon. And they were just kind of flooding it's rare that but I took some time with it because there was a lot of information coming off it, just how the human consciousness has kind of lost innocence, not to put anyone down, but there's this loss of innocence, and there's a loss of wholesomeness, but that's our spiritual energy. Now, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of in theater and in the film industry and all of it, there's a time and a place. We talk about like the Greek mysteries or Shakespeare. There's a time and place to act out the most demonic acts. Our soul in fact, I was shown this once, that we have to see it on the outside to not internalize it and want to do it on the inside, meaning we learn from seeing things like that, and we can satiate and temper some of our own desire. It's like if you watch a great film that's about a love affair. Let's think, what's one that's a deep love affair Bridges of Madison County with Meryl Streep, and I think it was Robert Redford. This is about an affair, a woman who has an affair, and it's the most like it's so, you end up like feeling her position and being like, oh my God, it was so real. But you can watch that and live through the emotional cycle that she went through and appreciate the beauty, bow to the beauty of that archetype, but know that I'm not going to do that. I don't want to go through that in this lifetime, in my life. But it was really satisfying to watch it. It's like that. It's why we love novels and films, because they play out our shadow side and they let us get to experience it, but through wisdom and through the heart. But there's also the really oversaturation of that's everywhere as well. So what has happened to humanity is that we're saturated in this, and then we have the culture war, which is for a reason. And Magdalene's aligned with it on some levels. I'm going to speak to where she's aligned with it and where she's not. But the culture war is in need of some wisdom. It really is. We're meant to have some pushback against some old powers, and I was shown that more than ever recently. I saw some things that sent shivers down my spine and made me get the terrors. I was like, oh, that's still alive. The shadow side of the controlling force of what would be like, buried in some of the old school religious doctrine and teaching is still there. It's still there, and it could pop up at any time. That's why this is important. Very important. Let me just say right now, the message of this lecture, the overall theme, I can tell you right now, don't give up, Magdalene. If she's alive in you, don't turn your back on her as an archetype, and if you're connected to her as a being. She hasn't seen the end of what's coming against her. And so, more than ever, it's important that, and I had to see that. I probably got a little off, but I'm going to take it to where it's going. I had to see that. In the last video, I talked about how I've spent the past year doing the rosary every day, and it's so profound. It's like, I mean, it truly is. And because of my work, it taps me in at that light body Shakti level and the heart of the mother. And my work, it's just everything about it. I love. If anything's going wrong, you can just pick it up, and for some reason, it just It's Tantra, the rosary, and it's rose, Ari, rose, ROSE, the rose. It's connected to Magdalene and Mother Mary. So, and it's also connected to the Ankh. It makes the shape of the Ankh and Venus. So that impulse is still alive. Okay, so keeping in touch with Magdalene, I'm going to just say it. I'm going to go into it now. What happened, how I had to course correct a tiny bit. But it was real, because I got to see something that was utterly scary. So right now, we talked about this last time. There is a renewed interest in the end times. And so a lot of people are talking about this, you know, the what's it called? The return of the old gods and like the there's a lot of within the church, there's this big rupture. There's this faction building that really wants to go back to the old ways. There's some really nice things about the old ways, but buried is this seed. It's the anti feminine seed. And it's the very same seed that, Magdalene, as an archetype and as her seeding on the planet, was betrayed by the church that she was the head of. Meaning, so this is the same as a betrayal in a marriage, in a love relationship where you've fully given your heart. Now, I'm not trying to make any kind of a victim out of Magdalene or her archetype or her, she certainly doesn't hold victim codes in the school that we're running. So, not at all. But her heart, it's really important. The heart and the feminine heart was betrayed. The wisdom, the divine feminine wisdom was betrayed. We know that the beauty that's in the church is that the Mother Mary energy has remained, and it's meant to be like that. It's very powerful. She is the mother of Jesus, of Christ. You can see this archetypally or literally. And she's seen as the Virgin Mother who conceived through the Immaculate Conception. In the church, this is very literal. It's considered one of the great mysteries, or it's one of the mysteries. So now, had Magdalene's wisdom been embraced and her oral tradition and some written been included, the understanding of these concepts and the wisdom stream would have been integrated, and there would have been some different outcomes. And in fact, I'm saying this as um, we contemplate things on the astral level through our emotional body, through our feelings. When we feel an archetype, you hear the saying, feel into it. That's what that means. So we are such literalists and materialists in this world. We think if we hear something, it means, oh my God, it happened like this and it was like this. There's a time for that. But when we speak the archetypal language of also the Akashic record, and so when we're talking about these things happening, you can create it in your mind. Bina and the mother is the imagination. It's the formulative force of understanding and perception. Perception. So we have to understand how to bring our perception into a higher ground so that we can perceive the wisdom. You hear people talking about lifting the veil. We have a classic video held in the school here called Lifting the Veil of Venus. And it just means that until your eyes are pure and until you have gone through some of this transmutation, you can hear the wisdom, you can see the wisdom. There's people speaking it everywhere. It's become quite trendy, actually. The occultists and the some of the mystery lodges of the past are being just put up on many, many platforms that are political, platforms that are of the more alternative or truther level, and there's just a lot more in the world. It's everywhere, actually. Even with the religions, everybody's podcasting now. And so this wisdom is everywhere. Recently, I something clicked. I keep try to keep it rare, but I was on Twitter X, and somebody posted a link to a video that was happening and said this guy knows his stuff. He knows it. He can speak to this, and he's the occult in-house occultist and gets not just gets it, but is an authority on it. And so rare that you would even click on something like this. But I think because I'm doing this video and some other things that happened, I was like, okay, I'll give it 5 minutes. I want to see what's going on here. And I recognize the person too. And so I clicked on it, and I have no judgment at all. It's important to say that, but listened to the words coming out. And then some of the comments made about certain orders or certain things that existed before. And I had to have a human moment of being like, this is crazy. I can't believe this. I like the one of the most profound points of all of it. The comment was made, oh, that's nothing to really. I looked at that, it's nothing really. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. It was a certain it was a certain impulse that had been on the planet going back to the time of the Renaissance. And that's okay. And it's okay. And then I heard the response, and they were talking it out, being like, yeah, what do you think? What do you think? And it was just a reminder. The only reason I needed to see it was to be like, oh wow, it really is. This is really, and I've seen it in other places as well. This is the time when, in order to be privy or be able to decode, sometimes we say decode, but it is how would this be described? It's Magdalene. It's total humility, total beginning to perceive what the material world is, to embrace it, to love it, but to have a living relationship in the heart with it. Remember, Gaia, or not Gaia, heart and earth are an anagram. They have the same vibration. Heart, earth, they're the same. Our heart energy is meant to be in communion with the mother goddess. Another thing I'm going to make a note to talk about is a lot of people talking about paganism in a really negative way. So we talk about paganism too, but the way it's being spoken of is the seeds of the old witch's hammer. It's the seeds of the Inquisition and the Crusades. I hear it, and it sends chills down my spine. So this is quick note on paganism. Paganism can mean many different things. There's many different lineages of paganism, of Gnosticism, of all these different lineages. Even, going back to Egypt and even Africa, there's many different streams. It is true, and we've addressed this here. I talked a lot for a while about the book, The Darkening Age, about when when Rome became the church and they fought the pagans, and there was destruction and terror. That fight, I think it was around 300 BC. I might be wrong, but it's called The Darkening Age. It's a fabulous book. I don't even agree with the point of view of the writer, but she did such a great job. She kind of overlooks some of the shadow sides of paganism, but she really lets you know like what was happening historically correct. So there was a time when paganism, in many aspects, and even it ravaged the planet at one time, that the worship of the carnal forces of nature were destroying the planet and were desecrating the collective human consciousness. What that means is that the worship and the sacrifices were on full scale, whether it was humans, animals, or anything. It had awakened a kind of bloodlust, and that is the fallen Mars impulse as well, because those traditions were actually carrying the more eros and war, how they're the same energy. Bloodlust is what it is, but also the belief that we are ruled by these forces of nature, which we are not. They're actually an integral part of the human vehicle. They're, when you think of like when you think of the Vitruvian man or you think of the Vitruvian woman, you think of, these are the forces of nature being run through the human vessel, through the human vehicle. And they're a balance of all the chakras. And but there's an integration in the heart. So looking at this, just to understand that to perceive the wisdom, this is where it took us. You have to sit with it and contemplate and be humble and maybe go through some challenges that come. Sometimes this happens all the time. I see this all the time. It happened with me. When you begin to, you're walking up, we talk about the temples, the stairs. When you start to get ready to lift that next foot, to take that next step, anything that hasn't been purified, the forces come. And that's when the dark forces are even allowed to attack, even if you're carrying a life stream of wisdom. This is why the dark forces are just part of creation, just the elemental shadow forces. And if they need to do, you think of creating, stabilizing, and destroying, the Hindu gods, the Trinity in the Hindu, to create, to stabilize, and to destroy. They're all part of this human journey. And so sometimes if you're carrying something and you're deeply on the spiritual path, your initiator will give rein to the dark forces to come after you. Meaning, and it can happen in dreams, it can happen in the astral, and it can happen through other people, even. You know, the human vessel is available to be used by both angels and demons. Even when you're awake, if you slip, there's times when that force goes and it goes right through your words, right through your eyes, right through your sense of smell. Oftentimes through the consuming culture, consuming things, consuming images of the regenerative force being used just to create more chaos. Those are the shadow forces. And that's why there's a saying, even on the path of initiation and the path of the adept and the master, it can be said like this: the higher you go, the harder you fall. You think fallen angels, meaning the more wisdom you're carrying, the greater the fall can be if you're not diligent and tuned in. Again, we honor the human level. For whatever reason, this is being released to be said. So it's how we speak, it's how we think. Hate is hate regardless. If you think, if I think that I'm more evolved than these people over here that are going crazy with this conspiracy or that, if I think, if I start to get a little bit of arrogance and allow that serpent of lust to come up and strike, even energetically, when light body woman, we take responsibility for everything in the unseen world, especially with women, because that's our strength. We are positively polarized on the inner plane. We've talked about that a lot, and in various levels in the astral. So our thoughts and especially our emotions can send daggers. Hell hath no fury like a scorned woman is so true. That in both men and women can carry this rage that comes out, but just taking it back to the higher you go, when you're there's a time to be human. We have many lifetimes. We just get to play. We get to experience love, pain, death, illness, parenthood, monasteries, whatever it is. We get to live all the archetypes as humans. And then once we hit a certain place, once you're shaken and it's time to wake up, you can never go back unless you block your soul off totally, which is not a very good thing to do. Once that path opens to you, you pretty much, the door behind you has shut. And now you have to take consequences at a higher level. This is Magdalene. And we'll talk about her archetype as the prostitute because it's very powerful. We don't see that as a bad thing, even though on the exoteric level, of course, it's not, it's a dig, or it's to degenerate her as a female. It's a dig at her as a woman, and it was taken on absolutely by the church early on. But the prostitute is also The feminine principle. The feminine principle that has descended into the world, the underworld that has gone down the rabbit hole, is up for grabs. And she's governed by the law of suggestion. She doesn't yet have her own force, her own Christ force. As the Magdalene mysteries create regeneration in Scorpio, think about these mysteries. Scorpio's complete surrender, complete union, complete going into the darkness of your own being. It's rules marriage. It's the eighth house. It rules contracts because of the Saturn correspondence, karmic contracts, wills, business contracts, marriages, huge with marriages. When we enter into this state, we have to be flung to the demons. In Hades, in Pluto, Pluto governs it. So first we get destroyed, we get beaten and ravaged, and the terrors of the underworld take us over. They take our wisdom. They siphon our life force, and that's when the feminine principle is called the prostitute. This is work that we came into in Light Body Woman because she's available and she doesn't have one partner or one focus. She's for sale. Basically, give me some money, I'll create for you. Give me a little this, I'll create for you. Give me security and a promise of wealth, I'll be there. I'll sign on to that. If you understand what I'm saying, meaning keeping love and wisdom out of the equation, but just doing things for the payback or the gifts and there's a really good word when you get something. It's when you're given, the physical world honors you and gives you a lot of things. And when you're in that mindset, you can be used so easily and you can slip in the wisdom. There's a time to hold great abundance when you carry wisdom. Absolutely. It's in service of the whole. And there you may need to build something big or do something. But if you get seduced when you're holding wisdom, it might seem like it's being birthed and birthed and birthed and something's growing, but it's growing with the shadow light. And that can grow things just as much as the divine light, which is the integrated spiritual energy. And we can fall for it like fools and think, oh wow, this is it. But then when it's destroyed, we will understand that the foundation it was built on hadn't worked itself out yet. There was some lust, or there was some hate, or some ignorance. So let's take it back to hate. It doesn't matter. This is what led to that. The higher you go, the further you fall. It doesn't matter who you are. Hate is hate. Meaning if you let hate take hold of you, this is why we really encouraged here to step away from some of the shadow side of politics or even the conspiracy world, because the vibration in it casually drops hate all the time. I've had it come towards me more than I've ever spoken of. And boy, it's demonic. When that hate starts firing at you and it's run through that, it takes no prisoners and it is seriously carrying the dark forces. That's why you can't do it. You can get mad. You can have rage. It's healthy rage is okay. Like there was a big thing going for a few years about feminine rage or sacred rage or holy rage. Absolutely, there's a time to growl, but you have to understand energy and how you're going to work it. Again, there's a time for us to break down and lose control and be all over the place. I've had to have it many times in my life where I was a complete failure. Everything I was not meant to do, I did. Every emotion, every word that escaped my mouth carried daggers and was like shooting arrows. And it was happening pretty well too. I have Mercury opposite Mars in my natal chart, and it's in Gemini too. Mars is in Sagittarius. So that opposition of Mercury Mars brought in an ability. I had to learn to train my word. Be careful of running those energies. Instead, work for productivity. Work for productivity. Assess the situation and say, wait a minute, does this really hold? Is this really hold it? Or am I giving my creative force to something that's using it and not honoring the divine feminine. And this is what I'm going to say. The talk of paganism is creeping up in all the sort of religious platforms, even podcasters, male podcasters. This is how the witch hunts start. I'm going to just shift for a moment. Even women's platforms are holding this. I'm not letting go of feminism anytime soon. And I'm not even a feminist. We say the divine feminist, or divine feminism, but you can't let go of it because there's something lurking that hasn't been transmuted yet. And so it's important to understand what could easily be lost, if that makes sense. Magdalene's the archetype for that. So if you just understand her, you understand, obviously, the feminism held many, it needed to happen, but it also was some part of some social engineering and there was very much certain assets in charge of it, but it still needed to happen. And there's still people like, I really like Ruth Bader Ginsburg when she talked about, certain things, and she was true, and she was, might not be the same energy I work in, but just hearing, how a woman couldn't have a credit card or own a home or buy property or vote or determine if she could get divorced. I mean, certain things like that, the basics that we take for granted now, they could slip very easily. So we were talking in Light Body Tantra about, I was listening to one of these, to a recording on an app that was religious. I was listening to a talk about something. I can't remember. I think it was it was maybe a talk given by a lecture. And it talked about Mary, how she was almost stoned because she was pregnant out of wedlock, meaning she conceived, but not with her husband, as the mysteries go in the church. She had the Immaculate Conception. So they were ready to stone her. The people, that group of people was ready to stone her. And I told the women that were in this group that I was listening to that. I was falling asleep because I've been studying certain things, and I think it was in the Catechism. So when I was falling asleep, when that part came on, and I just sat straight up. It was probably midnight or 1 a.m. and I had chills because when I heard that, I had forgotten that she was going to be stoned to death for, at that time, for conceiving without being married or properly, however the story goes. And for whatever reason, I needed to sit up and process that and everything. This was back in January. It just hit me, the idea. This is the woman, like the woman who was in a co-creative act with a male and conceived a child will face death. When I said this, when we talked about this in Light Body Tantra, because it's a huge part of some of the teachings we have, immediately people started writing, it still happens today. It still happens today. And I was like, my God, you're right. I knew that, but I was just so enmeshed with understanding this and how it's part of scripture and it's just casually talked about. Obviously it's archetype and it's allegory too, but the way it was talked about, I heard hints of something. And these kinds of reminders have been coming over and over to just remind me why the divine feminine, why this path in this lifetime for me and for the people I work with and for many. So let me just see where that's going. Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump into one other thing. Now I know, and this is going to be really, really, it's going to hold some weight. After I did that last video with Mars and the Mother Mary mysteries, and I talked very openly about praying the rosary, even though that could be seen as kind of like, I know other people are doing that right now. It came to me last March in a way that I'll tell later because I want to stay focused. And I rejected it and I pushed it away and I said, no way. And then I did start it again. And I was like, no way. And then I said, I never, I just didn't, it's not the rosary itself. I love the rosary, but the whole connection to a religion that I had probably not been part of in about 30 years. So, um, 25 years. Yeah, I remember. So I've had this year of complete divine glory, the glorious mysteries, the luminous mysteries with the rosary. And I believe that this prayer, for me, it was a karmic contract to come back and it's birthed something new. There's a huge gift in it, and I'm happy to share that and be part of that. And I'm not warring with the church. This isn't about that because I don't have a war with it. And I don't even this wisdom we're not going to carry forward that way with this platform. Even various political things or this, there's no war. There's just an assessment and then deciding where the energy goes and then inviting people to come up. Now, there's all kinds of things happening on the planet that are horrific that we've talked about, the more war in the Middle East, even Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of things that will have to be addressed. This is what I'm going to share. After that video, probably a couple days after, I have a new phone. And so I had YouTube on my phone and it wasn't my account. It was like, I don't know, I didn't have I still need to fix it, but it was just random. And a couple of videos came up for me. I think probably because the phone was listening to me talk about the rosary, which is how it goes now. But I was curious because they were about what we're talking about now. And it opened my eyes to this whole aspect that I kind of knew about, but this is directly related to the Magdalene Mysteries and the feminine. There's a lot of talk happening because of this frenzy around the dark forces taking over humanity. That there may be some truth to that. Because there's this gathering in these political wars and culture wars, there's a lot of demonizing and polarization happening that we've seen before. And you have to listen very carefully. If you just go into something with your emotions, you'll fly by the seat of the next emotion. One day it's this, oh no, it's this, and then it's this, and then somebody says this, and you're in need of a strong man that day, and boy, that's it. Meaning like I'll attach to that person, I'll be saved without even realizing what the whole thing stands for. And that can happen on both sides politically, by the way. I'm not speaking to one or the other. So, what I was shown, there's a lot of talk about exorcism going on and removing demons from people. And a lot of people that carry that sort of title and authority are starting to rise. And there's massive groups of people rallying around it. And I knew, I mean, as I watched it, I have memories of it. And I also recently watched a lot of the television shows that were period pieces about, England and the monarchy, and I was just blown away, and France and Scotland and all. There was a lot of period pieces are very popular, and they all address all the queens that were beheaded, kings too, but the beheadings were crazy, and women were considered. Oftentimes, you'll see the healer and the woman, and she's trying to do anything that's not aligned with the male practitioner is considered to be possessed or carrying dark spirits. This is where we're going. This is a time of the fall, meaning there is a collapse in humanity and there are dark forces. But with all this condemnation of paganism, with all this condemnation of exorcising the demons, with all this, the woman's bodies in politics on both the right and the left, on the highest levels, on both sides. There's no real total ally right now, meaning be vigilant. I won't even speak to any of it. There's the obviously voting for women's reproductive rights and there's a lot of things coming in. And we have very specific teachings through the Magdalene lineage about fertility, conception, and the regenerative force, including marriage, divine marriage, loyalty, sacred union, soulmate type relationships. We carry deep belief in the profundity of it. And my whole work started with fertility rituals. I mentioned that. And conception to us is the highest, highest, highest ritual as a woman. And yet, and I teach this, but we have to be careful about what's happening because it can also be used to harm and to take us backwards in many, if things go to a level where we go backwards, obviously there's a lot of politics involved in this. And I'll be the first to say that they're right about something. They're right about something. I agree with both sides most times. I agree with that. I can never be on one side politically because I see the integrated wisdom of the divine feminine. That is what she is. So a lot of these things that are creeping in via some religious platforms and political platforms carry the markings of our past. And it could rise up very quickly. So let me just ask what to say for this. Anyone, and some of the people talking about this, I will keep it very light, but you can see their aura. They're carrying the fallen forces. These are not friends of the divine feminine. They would snap in a heartbeat. The people I've seen are not popular public figures, so I don't want you to think I'm pointing to anyone. I'm going to make that really clear because I don't want anyone to jump to conclusions like it's this podcast or that. The people I'm talking about now are a little bit lower down the chain, but they're connected to especially to this revival of religion. This is why it's so important. Now, even within, I've checked in with the church right now. There's a little bit more liberal side to it. That's a little bit more progressive. I don't want to use progressive in that bad way, but meaning a little bit more inclusive and understanding. And then there's a side that's getting really, really aggressive about the demons and they're being taken over. And yes, there's some shadows and darkness, but this is all Magdalene because these are the same people who don't understand, they haven't given birth yet to the knowledge and the understanding that we're speaking of here. So, where do we go from here? Oh, and I've even read books. A couple years ago, a couple summers ago, I think it was after the 2020 summer, I came across something. It was about the return of the gods, something like that. And there was a book demonizing feminism. And at the time, I'm like, yeah, I want to read this because I've never aligned. Like I've never considered myself a feminist, even though I have been one on the spiritual platform from the very beginning. I've shared the story how I interviewed the bishop when I was 7 years old with a tape recorder about why I could not be a priest, but even more important, an altar boy. And I was 7 years old, and I had that to show you how far back I had a tape recorder. So that's feminism, but that's spiritual feminism. I also honor the spiritual technology of the female in the highest degree, but also honor the human path and honor Lilith in her role as the teacher and the power and the creative power. So there's no pristine too pure for us. We carry a kind of purity that just holds wisdom and that understands the human condition and the beauty of the human path. So I wanted to say that. But this book about feminism that I read was a book about how it was satanic impulse and demonic impulse that had created all these feminists and how they were all connected to the occult and they were all connected to, like early platforms like Theosophy, Madame Blavatsky. That was a big one. I think Anthroposophy, but not as big as Madame Blavatsky had feminist ideas and ideals in the Theosophical movement. But it was really linked to that and some other things that came just all of it. There's a lot of them. The Alice Bailey work. There's a lot of work that happened in, you know, in the beginning of the 19th century and leading up to it. So, or the 20th century. So I know all this work. Like I know the esoteric body of work. I know all. I've studied all of it, going back decades. All of the theosophical work, all of the anthroposophy work, all of the even, you know, the Golden Dawn. All of this, like these early mystery lodges and schools that hold a kind of hermetic wisdom and some Rosicrucian wisdom. And there's many, but they were pointing that all these women had links to these schools, and that's why they had links to yoga and fasting and being vegetarian and and demonizing all of it. Now, to be clear, feminism as a movement in the past couple decades, that it needed to have a kick. The 60s are ruled by Venus. 6 is the number of Venus. So Venus was active in the 60s. It was the flower children. Like the six rules Venus in the 60s were all Venusian. So I'm thinking of 69. So the Mars and the Mars and Venus impulse is 6-9 because it's the 9 and the 6 are Mars and Venus. It's a sign of Cancer, the astrological sign Cancer. So this is the thing with this. There's a strong foundation being built, and then I'm going to finish this aspect with the final revelation where I looked at some documents in the Vatican, so to know where this is going. So Magdalene, the woman, in the early church teachings, this just popped in, I've got to say it. The early church teachings, oh, this is huge. Oh my God. And it's right in front of me. This is so wild. It was women that spread it was women that spread the church teachings. You just write this down so I don't forget. Okay, so we're talking about feminism. I'm going to go back to that. All right. And women. Okay. This is really big. This is something that I had never even seen before that was shown when I was getting ready. So, and I didn't know this about the church. I heard a lecture recently. I've been studying this stuff to really, there's some really good things out now because it's part of my lineage and I have a karmic contract to understand it and relate it to this work. It was women outnumbered men 2-1 in early Christianity. Christianity, even though we hear that it was spread by, you know, the disciples and the apostles and the gospels, it was women that spread the church. This is coming right from the church. I heard a lecture by a scholar in the church. Women spread the Christ teachings. Women were the spreaders of Christianity, and it spread fast because it lit the flame in the woman on any given day had more theological knowledge. This was said than even some of the I don't know what they called them back then, but the priests and the bishops, that the women were so eager to learn. This is the Catholic Church, that they studied all day and spread it. And there's actually a show out that kind of shows this in the show with Magdalene. It's a modern show. I won't say the name, but it's kind of a show about Jesus that's very, very popular. I watched it, and the Magdalene actually was shown as being the true studious one, the true committed one, and a couple of her friends. This is really how it was. So what happened was, this is all the divine feminine. Women embraced Christianity for this reason, and this is huge in the Magdalene Mysteries. The Roman Empire at that time gave no rights to women. Women could be beautiful, and women were kind of like property, and they could study a bit and speak, but when it came to marriage and motherhood, this is so unbelievable because it's what we work with in the new human sexual paradigm. A woman was often married as a young teenager, and in some cases younger, to a much older man, often in their 50s, in Rome. So, and they were, breeders, and you've heard about the different kinds of wives you could be, but it was very common that a woman didn't have say, and that she was married to a man much, much older than her. And and oftentimes, if she had a daughter, the daughter was done away with because they wanted sons for the Roman Empire, for the war, to fight, to go into battle. And so, like in a lot of times, men were highly prized as children, and so a lot of times the female children were killed or given away, and sometimes she would have forced termination of pregnancy. She didn't have a say over that. She could be forced to cancel a pregnancy if it wasn't the right situation. So the women, the early teachings, and can be found in the Gnostic teachings and in the early Essene, we call the Christ Sophia Essenes that we work with, or the Christos Essenes. This is my work is a descendant from this lineage. So it could be found that in the early teachings from Christ in the immortal body, in the etheric form, that it was said that the women and men were equal. So I'm not talking from feminism or Hollywood equal pay or anything like that. This is spiritual. Men and women in the early church were equal, meaning that the disciples of Christ were totally equal. Sometimes it's recorded there would be a little, spat between a woman and a man, and sometimes there was jealousy around Magdalene. And even the church holds it that Magdalene was the number one disciple. She's not included in most things, but even in some of the modern day, they talk about that she was known. I forget the words that are used. So think about this, the early church being spread by women who are equal, women who study spiritually, women who carry oral traditions, women who are, the early Christianity had a lot of scriptures and written tradition, written and oral, that did not make it. And there's plenty of that out there. Some of it maybe not so authentic, and some of it very much will open up the Akashic and reveal. So, and Magdalene would have been one of those. And there's all kinds of myths and legends about what happened to Magdalene at the time of the crucifixion. And they're very powerful, truly powerful. And I'll share with you the wisdom that we work with Magdalene as the bride of Christ and the mother of the child of Christ. We have specific work that I've been given with Magdalene as a stream here. So, of Enlight Body Yoga. So, it was actually women that spread that. You wonder, the church spread across the land. It went from being outlawed and illegal to being the biggest religion all over the land. And that was women that did that. And women spread the gospels. And women at that time understood the wisdom and the esoteric now. And there were women, I've learned this from a woman that was in my mentorship that pointed me to a book that talked about how certain women and women of color and women of, I believe it's Africa, I don't know specifically, but she believed had been really taken from by church fathers, some of their practices and understandings. This is not, I'm saying this today, and I did read the book too, with the understanding that the way religions and traditions spread is that they jump. All archetypes jump from, and I'm not giving them a pass on that, but it's also important to know that everything jumps. The Egyptian teachings, the Kabbalistic teachings, the canon of the church, they're all Judaism, the secret doctrines there. There's, even in Islam, there's deep teachings in their mystical tradition that are the same. And in ancient Africa and Egypt, all these symbols have always been crossing over and merging. It's part of what's happening on the planet. But at that time, it's important to understand some things were left out. I know that I knew it because when I was listening to it, I was like, I could see it. I could even see and hear these councils when they were discussing it. So this is just personal information. You don't have to take it as I'm not putting this out there as absolute. This is my experience, and this is what I've always known, but it's the truth. Now, the lecture about women spreading the gospels is 100% true. But make note, it was because at that time the church provided equality, choice in marriage. Also, I should say that people who were handicapped, people who were lepers, people who came from other religions were all welcome at the banquet table of the early Christian church. It was a religion of outcasts and misfits and women, because women we're so happy to find a place where it's like you're equal. It's not all about your body. It's not all about the children you're going to birth. It's not, you can't be married. You can come into a union. And it was the laws of chastity that they were first interested in, because before that, in many cultures, marriages aren't chaste. And in the Roman marriages, the woman was expected to be chaste, and the male could have as many liaisons as he wanted. He could, use his force like a man, and women were expected to be chaste. But in the church, in these early teachings, it was one. I can't know if I'm completely correct, historically correct, if it was one of the first, but they held marriage as the sanctity of marriage, which is very much how we see it here. We're human, and nobody has to get married, and many people won't. But when you do marry, this is eighth house mysteries. So here we are, back to Magdalene, back to Scorpio, the eighth house: contracts, power, wisdom, sovereignty, um, purifying the regenerative force, which is the phoenix rising as the flaming heart of Mary Magdalene. Meaning that when you come into a sacred contract and you do that work, the purification, the surrender, the facing the darkness, the understanding and gaining through Binah and through Saturn, the perception, the higher perception. And Saturn also rules Capricorn, which is perception. We'll be talking about it more this year, but we talk about it every time anything Capricorn rolls around. So it was about having it without, whether the church knew it or not. I'm not even saying that they knew it or not, but that's a natural progression of the divine feminine for love to be sacred. Why? Because love is the alchemical container of the heart. Now, the heart, we could look back to Taurus. It's the Taurus new moon. By the way, we're talking so much about Scorpio because Scorpio is the opposite of Taurus on the axis. It's a feminine axis. And I was going to come on the Scorpio moon, and I wasn't able to. Because of this, this was hugely happening. So the feminine hasn't fully been understood in the church. And this is what they showed me when I was writing. Priests are not allowed to marry. 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 Now, Mary or Mari, well, first of all, is a name of the feminine initiates in certain deep back lineages. It was also the most common name, one of them at that time of the early church, showing that the planet was watered with that name. Ma-Ra is another version of Mary. It means moon, sun. We often in yoga think of Ra-Ma as sun, moon, but Ma-Ra, this is just wisdom we work with here in the law of correspondence. Ma, moon, and Ra, sun. The Ma, the feminine principle, is first. And the name Mahri also means the bitter sea, or the suffering in the bitter sea. It's our experience in the underworld. We face these things, and that is Scorpio. The bitter, it's a water sign. And so Magdalene's mysteries are eighth house. She goes into the waters and tastes the bitter sea. It's the Marie is also salt. What crystallizes from that as the rising flame, the crystalline expression of the divine feminine. It's the purified force. And it's only through the heart, it's only through love and understanding the feminine. This is really important right now. It's offensive in some ways to all sides politically. And sometimes religion grips onto it too tightly without, you can't grip onto it without Mary, not Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene. Mother Mary, also Mother Mary and Magdalene are the archetypes of the mother and the daughter. And there, you can't really have one without the other. However, Mari, think marriage. The root word is marry. Marriage. Marriage is Mari. It's marry. To marry is the feminine mystery. Why do you think it is that even today, most of the time, now we all have temptations and we all have lifetimes or relationships where it doesn't matter if you're male or female. You might be looking around when you're supposed to be in a loyal, committed relationship. Can happen to everyone, but the male is more prone to to polyamory. I never really say that word, but meaning that I think that means having multiple relationships. So that I strike that. The male are often more drawn in through the lust, the Mars, the desire force, the male testosterone. I remember hearing it was a long time ago on NPR, a talk about testosterone. Now it's there's a whole new talk about it, but they were talking. A couple women were talking about how when they took it, what they felt, and it's pretty well known. It ramps up the drive, and so men are associated with testosterone. Also, when you're pregnant as a woman, you get more. If you're, I gave birth to a son, and so a male, you get more testosterone than you usually have when the baby is coming into fruition. So women will often talk about getting a burst of testosterone they've never felt before. But that's Mars and that's Scorpio and that's the regenerative force. So the female, what I'm pointing to is this. The mysteries of marriage are the mysteries of Mary. It's a really profound part. These were the mysteries that I had to go through and go and move through the shadow side of to understand the feminine heart and the condition of our planet. I lived through it physically while holding the flame. So what that means is the wisdom can be alive in you and you can be even an embodiment of it or a personification of it, and still in this world can face some things that are so painful. And the truth is that when we are awake and conscious of truth and wisdom, the suffering is that much deeper. It's very, very profound. It's feminine suffering because it's heart suffering. We all have a heart. So men feel it too. Oh boy. When a man feels that, you know he's going through a form of initiation. A lot of times it's the female or the mother. But when the man gets hit with that, it can change him forever when he has to feel his heart like that. Again, some men have more feminine and can really feel all the time. But in the collective, man thinks mostly more with his head and his gut. And so to come into the emotional level of the heart takes a little. In fact, there's some podcasters out there that are huge right now, and they are really popular with the guys in that sort of movement. But sometimes you can see not all, but sometimes you can see the ones that haven't started their heart training yet. That it hasn't happened, and some are, and it's really, really having an impact on their emotions and experiences coming into their life. So this is the other thing I want to say about this. I don't know if this is a known thing, but I wrote this down. The word evangelize. So the early Women were the evangelizers of the Christian church in its first 100 years. And even I think after that, for a while longer. Eve, angel, eyes. Eve, angel, lies. It spells out Eve, angel, eyes. We're talking about perception, the eyes of the divine feminine to see and to project truth. Eve, the primordial feminine woman. Angel, this is big. Evangelize is of the heart. Eve represents the heart. So Eve has the powers and forces of nature in her emotional body or her astral body, the heart. So when Eve, and speaking, we talked a lot about the power of the feminine word. That sound current connects to the angels. The forces of nature are flowing through. That's Eve. And I remembered a story about my son when he was 4 years old. And things like this happened a lot with him. He was 4 and he was in his car seat in the back of my car, and I was driving him to maybe preschool or something. It was a sunny day. I'll never forget it because I can go right back to it. And he said, Mom, he was hilarious, by the way. He said, Mom, it's too much. And I said, what? And he said, the angels in my heart. He's like, I can't stop them. And I said, oh yeah, really? What's happening? And he said, Mommy, sometimes when I look at people, the angels are coming out of my heart and they're going to the people. He's like, sometimes it's just too much. And we had never talked about this. So he was pretty spiritual, but this was a moment in time. You know, when a child at a certain age, whether they're boy or girl, is young, they're in the feminine principle, the feminine polarity. And there were a lot of things with him that were aligned with my work and my path and our lineage. So this is the truth, though. We have angels in our heart. That's why the heart is so profound. It carries the powers and the principalities. We can use the heart for darkness, and we can use the heart for love and to build. It's the builder. It's the feminine. It's the imagination. So when now the heart has an underbelly, there's a lower chamber, and the heart can also be used what we call the shadows of Venus, which can be the shadow body of Lilith, where we run jealousy, vanity, competition, envy, suspicion. These are Venusian shadows. Gossip, meaning to defame another person, defamation. These are the shadow side of Venus. Especially you think of vanity, you think of the mirror and the this deep symbolism in that mirror has to be purified to see the Christ self. Vanity, envy, doubt, and feminine deception and betrayal. This is so think about a woman who's mad in a love relationship or who's decided, I'm done. I don't care. I'm doing what I want to do and goes out. A woman can do a lot of damage when she runs that energy, a lot, especially a beautiful woman in a certain age has such power, but she can also run those lower forces when they're inverted. But the power of the heart, this is the mysteries of Magdalene. And when we alchemize in love and we learn those lessons and we understand the purity, I wrote a long time ago, I think it was an Akashic insight called The Alchemy of Christos, Sophia, and it's about the alchemy of the heart in love. When we go through the depth of the eighth house mysteries in love relationships and we rise as the phoenix, we gain vision because in a love relationship, you think two people meet each other, let's say a man and woman in this one at the age of 21. They're both young, they're beautiful, they're youthful, they're like pristine. We don't start aging really until 35 or 36. So they see each other and they adore each other and and attracted to each other, and then they build into the heart. It might be chemistry and attraction at first, and it's very much based on usually there's chemistry, but there's also a lot of like what you're attracted to. Then you come into that relationship and you start moving along that relationship and you build together. Let's say you decide to get married and you work hard because you want to get stable. You want to create a foundation for maybe a family, and then you procreate, you have a child, and you start to grow, and it's hard. There's work involved, and there's everyday ups and downs, and there may be some financial challenges or some life purpose challenges or some depression or some illness. The human world brings these things regardless. And there may be love there, but there's also add aging, just the slight aging. There's a little bit of aging at each stage. And in a relationship that doesn't evolve, the ability to see each other starts to dim. The ability to hear each other can start to dim. And so the person that you loved is right there before you. But now, due to the hardship or the breakdown in communication, you're seeing their age or you're seeing their faults. And your connection with them is no longer linked to the regenerative force. There's other places to go to satisfy that, whether you're male or female. And so once that begins, the complete breakdown of the sacred alchemical container begins. When we have the mysteries of Magdalene in love, and this is what we're getting at, to marry, we develop the ability to see our partner as sometimes they call it the eternal maiden archetype. But when you see two older people who have loved each other and they're in their 90s and they're still holding hands, and their communication is like a harmonious dance. It's music. And they might be laughing and getting bickering too, but they do it with love in the heart, knowing they've come this far and nothing's going to throw them off. That is a very real kind of ascension, because the Phoenix rising can now see, yes, we appreciate the physical body. We appreciate power. But that heart that I came into a contract with, it won't be for everybody, but when it happens, I'm going the distance to see beyond what may be, youthfully attractive, and to love each other into old age and still see the soul. The soul does not. The soul ages, but not physically like that. This is the work, huge part of Art of the Feminine, that relationships have really suffered on the planet because of the lower Mars force and the inability of people to hold together for the family and the children. And obviously we could say there's a million reasons why at any given point something will not work. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the casual, convenient occurrence of, it's very powerful for the woman too, because oftentimes the woman is betrayed for a younger woman. It's an archetype that's very alive on the pad. Look at Hollywood. I mean, sometimes I just have to, or look at the billionaires, or look at it. It's just the way it is, but it's not just the way it is. It's the consciousness of our planet. And this is why women fear, everybody does now, because now we're in a pretty self-absorbed world with social media, with technology, with reality TV. We're constantly looking at ourselves. So it's everybody now. And there's even new categories emerging that are so obsessed with the physicality and youth. So it's hurt the mother archetype, because when you look at the world we're living in right now, the way it supports the mother and women, and this is why we're saying the good kind of feminism is not okay. It's not the way it's supposed to be in a spiritually awakened world. When the human race is awakened, we'll be understanding lots of things about the regenerative force and about love and union and marriage and all of it. But for right now, that has been so misunderstood, and that's why we have children that don't have a foundation more than ever before. It doesn't mean it's always the wrong thing. So I'm trying to double check everything just to make sure, but I'm bringing in the archetype of this. The fear that the feminine holds of aging is the fear that causes the feminine betrayal. It's so deep to understand this. Magdalene is the one that holds that because of this understanding of commitment, loyalty, love, marriage, birth, and spirituality, all in the same container. So let's take a moment. Oh, wow. There's a lot. There's a lot. I'm going to be honest, I haven't even started the first page of this, but we're not going to go on. We're going to be doing the Divine Feminine Wisdom lecture series all year on the Shannon Port YouTube channel. So each one will progress into different layers and levels. I have written down Jesus turns water into wine. Water into wine. So wine and the bread of the mysteries of Catholicism are also held in all the mysteries, hold bread and wine. It's nothing new, and it's not a human, what's have I heard sometimes it called, like, it's not it's not a satanic ritual. I'll just tell you that, right? It's a goddess ritual, and it's an archetypal ritual to call in the Elohim, meaning the spirits of the Christ light. So that's what it's really meant to be. That's in when you think of the Last Supper and Christ performing it, that's what's happening. And the transubstantiation and the transference of the Christ energy into something physical is Venus and Taurus and the light in matter. So they're really the mysteries of Venus and the spirit in matter of Taurus, which is the Taurus new moon today. So, and the inner sound of Taurus. Oh, we got to jump into Taurus. Just one moment. So Jesus turns water into wine. Water could be seen as the lunar feminine, and wine as the fire of spirit. So, water in mystical teachings, water also has a correspondence to the blood of the planet, the veins of the planet, the blood of woman, the blood of the human. And so, and the lunar principle as well. The solarization of the feminine principle, think about this, and the mysteries of the phoenix rising. And Scorpio's colors are red. So it's the solarized blood. It's the turning of water into wine, the mysteries of the Christ. It's Magdalene is the subject of these mysteries. And this is why we call it the divine feminine resurrection of the goddess. But it's through her commitment, her loyalty, her deep understanding as a priestess, as a mother, as a bride, that creates that container for that. It's her devotion to the mystery, to the devotion to the risen Savior, the Christ, that she sees the risen Christ first as her own divine image. And again, we'll go back to the phoenix rising. It's the heart being reborn, and it's the heart of Venus being reborn through the work of Pluto. Pluto is in Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is the age of Venus in our work. That's what we call it. We call it the goddess epoch because it's the age of the word and the age of Venus. Sometimes we say the age of the goddess. So in this time, those mysteries will be heightened. And Pluto is in Aquarius right now. That's what I meant to say. Those mysteries are on the table. We talked a lot about it in the Bridget video, 2 videos back, when Pluto really entered Aquarius, that Pluto's going to be bringing these mysteries into the collective. This is what we face. So what that means for this planet, anything that is of that lower nature can be attacked. And the pristine can be attacked too, but that's where the prayer and the understanding of sacred knowledge and wisdom, knowledge with a capital K, comes in. that I'm just seeing there's so much we could talk forever, but there's all going to be spread out in these videos. So the turning of water into wine is the alchemy and ascension of the feminine principle, and the which that alchemy literally changes our blood to the fear, which we call the lust principle, leaves. The good fear, the instinctual fear, we know how to use it. It can be connected to Lilith. It's that deep instinct, that female instinct. We'll talk about it next time. But the lusty fear, the carnal fear, the fear that leads us to do really unthinkable things, that has been removed from the blood. Fear has it toxifies the blood. I mean, we know if you've ever heard the stories about extracting blood when there's a huge amount of fear. That's truth. That's true. Fear, even on a regular everyday basis, when you're prolonging fear and indulging it in a way that's not instinctual, that leads to good action or good protection, but the kind of fear where we indulge it and we let it take us over, that's a Piscean energy of suspicion and doubt and fear, and the crucified one and the victim. That's also, and Venus is exalted in Pisces as well. So it's a very powerful thing to understand that what do we see in our society? Everything is fear. The media, pure fear. What's happening in the world, fear. Don't take fear with you into the feminine temple when you go inward. Take prayer. Always hold prayer up in the face of fear. When people who are just indulging fear, to put that message into the world about everything that's happening, that's probably not the right place to get your information. You can be aware of what's happening, but to stay there too long is to bathe in the entities. When a lot of people in one place have this excitement, because fear is an excitement, it's an exhilaration, it's a form of the regenerative force, the form of the Scorpio, and it can become addictive to be fearful. So when you get in some of these spaces where there's a lot of people that love being fearful and finding out, what's going to happen next, and then what's going to happen and what's happened, it's feeding the entities of fear, and they are brutal. They're also very seductive, because they make you think that you need them to fight the battle. And then once they get your permission and they get in your field, it can be a really tricky thing. It starts to affect our health, our heart. The heart is deeply affected by the wrong kind of fear. And then it can turn to hate and victimhood and rage and the whole thing. So we needed to say that about fear. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a quick look about this. This work is about the resurrection of the feminine principle. Beltane, let's just mention Beltane, and then we'll do a quick bit on Taurus. Beltane is the celebration of the maypole. I almost did the video on Beltane. I posted it several times. Beltane, first of all, Beltane, I need to share this with you. Beltane, lunar Beltane is the Scorpio full moon, but Beltane itself, the pagan holiday, is on May 1st. In 2015, the Inner Mystery School of Divine Love opened at Art of the Feminine. It was a Friday, too. It was so divine. And it was the age of healing the sexual current. So Beltane is huge. Beltane falls in Taurus, and I have a lot of Taurus energy. So I just like this. This one is really special for my heart, but it's also very special to Art of the Feminine, because the divine feminine, the Inner Mystery School of Divine Love, which we also call the Solar Feminine Mystery School, opened on May 1st on Beltane. And it's the healing of sacred union. And so, and all the mystery, all of this, I just want to say, the whole body of wisdom, that whole mystery school teaching, all of it, all the light body tantra, all of it is in the Divine Feminine Wisdom School. When I listen to some of those older recordings, it's unbelievable. I just her presence is so felt. It's undeniable. And I'm thinking of some of you who are in that one. It was such a special time. So, and I was also going through one of the hardest initiations I ever faced while I taught that. And there's a reason for that. The Beltane, the dancing around the that represents the phallus or the male principle, the pole. And the people dancing around it represents, it could even represent the Elohim, how they follow that force. It represents the feminine principle. The feminine principle can be the nucleus and she can be the periphery. It represents the creative force. Let's call it the creative force because it represents union and that how that act produces a child. So even the fifth house, 5 is Leo, but the fifth house is also represents the reproductive force, the merging act of merging. May falls in the 5th month. Again, we're working with correspondence, so the month of May is 5. It's the Hierophant 5, and it's um, connected to the regenerative mysteries. That's why we have Beltane, and the light is starting to awaken in the yearly mysteries around the zodiac, and everyone's out and feeling it in the spring. That regenerative force is kicking in. It's kicking. So that also is Magdalene. And that's why we open the Inner Mystery School of Divine Love on Beltane, because the Inner Mystery School of Divine Love is called Divine Love because it's about sacred union. It's about healing love relationships. It's about the power of the force and how light body tantra is all about, for those of you who remember New Human Sexual Paradigm, it's about the archontic attack on all of this. It's about how, so the archons are they're the inversion of the desire force. So they take everything that's positive desire and turn it into the lower nature, and they build up as entities that are beings that operate from the 4th and the 2nd, and they work against the goddess. And so anything that is work that helps strengthen us, but they can run through other beings and then attack what is good and what is moving towards the divine template of humanity, the human race in the new world or the new earth or the age of Aquarius. They're very good at that. They're instinctively not drawn to anyone who carries goddess energy for a reason. We have to learn to navigate this. But those forces that dance around the maypole are the forces of Magdalene. And the maypole is her inner Christ force. Think of her spiritual spine, which is her inner Christ. That holds these 7 temples of light body yoga. We call them the portals of light, or the 7 seals of Magdalene, or the goddess sacraments. They're the building of the body of the goddess. This is Beltane. I wanted to put in a word for Beltane before we go to just finish on the note of Taurus. So Taurus represents something really, and I put astral. We're going to be talking a lot about the astral body in the Lilith video because we have duality. We have an outer body. You see me, you hear me, you see what I want to project to you, because part of me has the power to project an idea into the world. But I also have my inner form, my astral form, and it can be the exact opposite. So, and this is really powerful for women. That's why Lilith is female, because of the feminine rulership on the inner plane, that and the woman's ability to have the positive polarity and act from that shadow. And this is why healing Venus is so important. We have to heal her. We have to understand how to awaken Venus and give birth to the Christic force, the feminine Christic force in this lifetime. So Taurus represents the sound current. We're just going to finish on the note of Taurus. We covered all the Scorpio. And in the number 5, the number 5 is also the Hierophant, which represents the inner teacher, which is the inner voice. So nature is a voice of the divine. And this is why it concerns me. I just have to say, all these people talking about paganism, because it's not a good thing. because there's a certain amount of holy paganism that is the relationship of humans with the esoteric. That's the metaphysical is the word, the metaphysical principle of our planet. We call her Magdalene, or the goddess. She's the daughter. We have an earth. Our physical body is the same as this earth. We are a microcosm. So to be there's a lot of, because of the whole situation around the earth changes and climate and all of this battle, political battle, has a lot of people, disillusioned and arguing. There's one side that's saying, hey, let's change everything. Let's address the carbon taxes and the carbon credits, all these things that I won't get into today. Um, and let me tell you something though, switching from oil to electric is absolutely what we're doing. This is why Uranus is pure electricity, and we're entering the age of Aquarius, ruled by Uranus. So I just had to throw that in. There's always so many things popping in. So just understand that I have nothing against, and I'm not aligned with either side in this argument. I'm aligned with the true side of seeing the truth, that spiritually we must connect with our planet, and then she will reveal her secrets to us. And through our own body, through our words, our thoughts, and our feelings, everything will shift. We'll take the appropriate actions. But for right now, because there's in the culture where there's been quite a bit of abuse and cult like behavior, and nothing is just in balance right now. So you get the extremes, the far this and the far that. But and then you have definitely a part of this industry over here on the right and the conservative side that basically is the gross national product. Is that how you say it? But that is the money for many, many countries. So I mean, what are you going to do? And there's a lot of fear about how we're changing things. And there's a lot of money wrapped up in everything too. So you get certain forces and powers really pushing certain narratives and putting money behind them. And that's how we get conspiracies. Most of them are very engineered to direct people's behavior, and most of all, their political alliances. The game has gotten so sophisticated. And as some of the people say, soon that technology will know us better than we know ourselves, and it will be absolutely able to tell us what to do or who to vote for or however we want to see it. So Uranus is high electricity, spiritual electricity, meaning the divine current or the divine holy fire of creation, the nucleus of the goddess that is truly, when you hear people talk about things like 0 point energy, that's Uranus. It's the real electric. And as we're leaving the age of Pisces, which is the bowels of the earth and oil, we are going to be moving into that. There's no doubt about it. And many, many things, new technologies are coming. So be careful about just not paying attention. We absolutely have to. This is Taurus. We just had the Earth Day. Taurus is Mother Earth. I remember in my 8th grade class, I was in student government. I was the environmental commissioner. I got voted in for this position. This is really funny because, and this was at Catholic school, I was the environmental commissioner in 8th grade, and in 7th grade, I was the peace and justice commissioner, which would have been the early version of social justice, which kind of cracks me up now, just the way everything has gotten so intense. But that was 7th and 8th grade. But my years as environmental commissioner were about picking up the earth. And this is back in the early 80s. So, or mid 80s, no, mid to late 80s was when it was. And this was kind of before it got to be a big thing. But I'm a Taurus. We have to take care of the planet. We have to. We have to. There's no, try and remove yourself from the politics and understand that the impulse that's telling us we need to care about our waterways. We need to care about our landfills. We need to care about the kinds of seeds and soil we have. We need to care about our emotional weather that we create, because the emotional body of our planet creates even weather patterns. When we spiritualize, first of all, things are going to change so fast each time the human race takes a jump, the outer has to follow it. So be part of that change that brings that. Things like this work here, that's all we think about. if you're really working and you're part of the tradition and you're plugged into it, you are in total service, and everything you do will be partially to see what's going on in the world and sort of the insanity, but also dedicate everything you do. That's why Magdalene was the number one disciple, is because even in the church they say she gave her all to this, to the teachings that were being taught, including the esoteric that are not included. She gave everything, and she could speak the language. So, yeah, don't forget the planet. I know there's some situations, there's some activists that are just, I can hardly handle it with the museums and the paintings. It's just, that's hard for me to see things like that, and a lot of the other things too. But at the same time, we have to just keep going and make a difference. Make a difference in your own backyard. Make a difference in your own food. Just like engage. Listen to Gaia. Go outside and listen to her. Listen to the trees, the animals. We are also establishing a new relationship with animals. So some things will slowly start to change. It just will. So it's the Great Reset is not all bad. There's a lot that could be said about that. I've gone deep with it, and there's a lot. Let me just see if there's anything we could put in really quickly here. So there's some surprises in it that people won't, that don't know, that they don't know they're there, but they're the light aspect of it. It's a huge collaboration. There's a lot of misunderstanding and lack of understanding of the feminine, and it a lot of it is materialism. It's like a literalist, materialist view of the world instead of understanding the heart and the connection to nature. But I know this for a fact, and I'm just going to say this kind of cryptically. There are a couple people embedded that are on the master level and that carry feminine energy. This I know. And so rather than going into fear about the world, because a lot of people are afraid of what's coming with technology, digital, what's it called? Digital surveillance, the surveillance capitalism. You hear all these words, but this is really, we are switching over. Just know it's going to happen very quickly. It's already happening. If you notice AI on all the social media apps now, everything you say is being listened to, everything you write, everything, it's everywhere. So in the face of all of it, you have to hold this. You have to not go into fear and be like, oh, this is happening. Have to hold it. You have to be the warrior or the warrioress and just know in your heart. That's the power that you get from Scorpio. So take one Scorpio mystery, whether it's your commitment to yourself, to know your partner, and do it and take the power that gives you to see clearly. What the Scorpio mysteries bring, an impenetrable force of nature around you. Meaning once you get, because it's pure power and it's wisdom. It's the arcane wisdom. So once you complete it, you hold, nothing can take that out, nothing. And life is always moving anyway. There is no death, really. We go through the spiritual death of Scorpio to give birth to the immortal, incorruptible body of being. This is the true resurrection. So, all right. Oh, I wrote Sleeping Beauty in the Heart. I put, okay, the story about the angels and Evangelize, I wrote down, must transmute the astral body to awaken the cradle of Venus, the altar of Venus, the bridal chamber in the heart, the sleeping beauty in the heart center, or Venus. Every human being has their own divine image, and that's what we're giving birth to. It's our Christic image. The heart is the center. It's the we, W-E. We talked about, if you haven't watched the last video about Aries and Libra, we talked about Libra as the highbrow heart mysteries. Libra is ruled by Venus, but it's the air aspect. So it's the intellectual, and it's the ruach aspect of Venus. And we said Aries is me and Venus is we. So I just wrote down, the heart is the center of we. When you can see with the heart, you will see that we are together on this planet. We are brothers and sisters, like it or not. We are. And speaking to some of the culture war and some of the things, the letters that are out there everywhere with some of the changes that have come and fighting against them, just know this: if you can step back from all of it. My son is in college right now. I've been loving. He's now many very far away from me. He's in college, and he's in a really diverse environment, and he loves it. And every time I see it, I feel so happy. It's really thriving. And so understand that it is a small world after all. And there's just one moon and just one sun. And a smile means friendship to everyone. So I just got goosebumps because I don't even know where that came from, but it is a small world. And oh, I know what I have to say. I have to say this. Speaking on politics, government, world government, what's happening. Because of technology and the Uranus effect, the world has to have some form of centralized power. This may be going against what everybody's talking about, little communities, little utopias, like 60s. Like I've known tons of people that lived in these types of environments, and sometimes they work, quite often they're a disaster. But a lot of people want to plan to be able to be in communities, thriving with people that they love and are like-minded with. This is what is happening, and it's the direction that the forces are going right now. Because of technology, we're interconnected in a way we've never been before. Every country. We used to have more physical borders. Technology and the internet changed it so that there's no borders. The trade and the communication and the spying and all of it amplified with the internet and with AI. So whether we like it or not, you can be in this country here and that country over there and that country. What this country does over here now matters to you more than it ever did before because of technology. Because we can't just say, we're isolationists and we're just here and everything's going to be okay. Because with AI, there's really no separation. If you can understand that, it mimics the esoteric mysteries, meaning it's the same thing, but it's happening on the material level without necessarily the soul. However, it can be used for good, and there's a chance it will be, with a lot of wisdom. We can't stop it. So some of these centralized ideas, people realized with population, there's always the conspiracies about population and depopulation. There was genuinely people who were great thinkers and who were in charge of the supply chain and the defense industry and the resources, the energy resources. And so they were looking, after the last World War, they were looking at things being like, okay, so now we have this new unity. How is it going to play out? And we were looking at population, we were looking at food, farming, all of it. And I say we, but I mean these people. I'm kind of inside their mind as I talk about it. A lot of people that were part of this movement of wanting to, look at the population, look at the farming, they didn't start out they started out really curious. And a lot of people who had a lot of money had a lot to lose. And so they wanted to be part of it. And that includes banking and all of it. But now, also that's banking and trading with smartphones and with the internet. Everything is quicker and faster and more connected. So we have to keep this in mind, because the centralized system, the nucleus, is meant to be attached to the cosmic core. We sometimes say the cosmic core code, meaning the womb of the goddess, the divine intelligence. In our galaxy, you could say the galactic core or the galactic womb. I'm talking about this because we're in Taurus right now. Taurus and Jupiter and Uranus were just conjunct. That's why we have all this massive focus on the planet. We are going to have to understand each other and learn to live with each other. At the same time, we want to protect our sovereignty. And we talked last video about it is non-negotiable that you protect your divine spirit. That's non-negotiable. You can't give that over to anyone. So that I don't care what's going on, who's connected, what technology, that your only job in life is to be connected to your spirit and to that's your life raft. That's the Christ walking on the water that says, look at me, don't look around, everything will come into order. This is what we have to do right now. So I'm just going to take a moment and ask. I'm seeing that there's a lot of people that are meant to have profound breakthroughs and ideas in this area. It's really a time for innovation in agriculture and farming. I'm thinking my son went to this kind of like he went to a Quaker Friends school. Um, and they did so the school was they had huge acres of gardens and plants, and it was a private school. It was a Quaker school, but it was Friends. It was kind of like the Waldorf and even like some of the Rudolf Steiner schools. It had that understanding of, how the earth is meant to how we're meant to be stewards of the earth and food and the soil. So that's really important. And integrating, instead of shutting people down and not listening, there's some people who have been demonized and seem like villains, but it's 50-50. Part of it's true and part of it's not. It could go either way. So keep your heart open, use your talents, right? The age of Aquarius with Pluto and Aquarius is saying you have to march to the beat of your drum, but with the group. You must express yourself. You must be who you truly are. And then also remember that as we get more spiritually evolved, sometimes we realize that we didn't quite know. So sometimes in different stages, you think you're this, but as you spiritually awaken, you might realize, oh, I got that wrong. It's okay. It was an experience and a powerful one at that. But remember, spiritual vision will also help you create your divine image, your divine blueprint and template. So this is all about the heart. So the heart, there's going to be a heart on the planet. This could lead into a lot of things, both negative and positive, but just know you want to be on the side, the angelics and the hierarchies that are working for the new earth, be on their team. They will tell you what to do. There's a whole hierarchy in charge of this process that we're moving through. You want to be on that team, and then just really listen, try to tune out either what the media tells you or what the conspiracies tell you, and just think for yourself. The Hierophant of Taurus is the inner voice. Helena Blavatsky called it the voice of the silence, but it is that inner wisdom that when we are in nature and settled and quiet, it's intuition. It's divine intuition. True meaning of intuition is the nonstop stream with your inner Christ or your higher self. That is the union of spirit and matter represented in Taurus, and Taurus is ruled by Venus, and the moon is exalted in Taurus. So it shows you that it is Venus that gives birth to this force and this voice. You hear about the emerald tablets. Emerald is the color of Venus. And emerald, you associate it also with the earth, with Taurus, with green. And the emerald tablets are really the living sound current that gives us the what we do next. And it's intuition. It's pure intuition. If you've ever been in a relationship where you've been having a hard time with someone, and then all of a sudden you move into an intuitive space with them and you feel like you fell in love again with them, it's intuition. Because when you're in the lower mind, the ego, you're just fighting everything or you're analyzing everything. The mind is the instrument of duality and duplicity. The right brain is always fighting the left brain, the masculine and the feminine, always fighting. Logic, abstract, it's always, or this is my right, this is my left. It's intuition is when we take it either to the third eye and the heart. And then we speak the truth. But when you've been fighting with someone or you couldn't see, and then you have a breakthrough, and all of a sudden you feel them, you know them, you serve them through your love. It's because you're in an intuitive relationship. A couple that can stay together for a long time can feel each other. They can be in the same space. And I've had this experience for hours and hours, days and days, months and years in the same space with a person, but you can feel them, you can cohabitate, and it's like a dance. And there's no agitation. You know what the other person wants before they want it. You know what you need before the emotional body breaks down and is begging for it. So your needs are met, but you're also serving. Partnership is service, make no mistake. Any true relationship, you will serve each other. In fact, oftentimes you have to bow to the other before yourself. That's one of the mysteries. At certain times, anyone who's been a mother knows that, or a parent. You're not in control most of the time. In certain situations, you're in service. You've agreed to bring in a soul, and you're in service. You make that service about the mysteries, and then it's very fruitful for both mother or parent and child. Okay. All right, I'm going to take a peek now, see what time it is. 3:24. So we started at, wait. Oh, wow, we've been going a long time. So I'm going to start to close out a really long time. Wow. Okay. I'm going to timestamp the video. I'll probably take a look at the time and see how long I should go for the next one. But this wisdom needs to come, and it's all part of Light Body Woman, which is a divine feminine codex that is the synthesis of a profound level of wisdom that has come through sacrifice. It's come through the goddess sacraments. It's come through living through giving birth physically and spiritually to all that is contained. So I'm really happy to be doing these divine. I used to do, for those of you who remember the Art of the Feminine podcast, we met every week, and this is what we would do. It was a little bit more structured and organized, and I might try to make the next ones a little bit less free flowing, and it was so powerful. And now it's held in the Divine Feminine Wisdom School. And it's amazing the amount that came in. We're doing that here right now too, but this is Divine Feminine astrology and the archetypal correspondences as we work with them. So just going to look through this really quick. Taurus, the power of woman's word. I wrote that down, but it's everybody's word. Just so you know, if you hear me talking more about woman, it's because my specific contract with Magdalene and being in a feminine vehicle in this lifetime, there's a certain part of my work that is for the woman. And it's funny because when I first started in the Akashic Records, the first place we went was to Atlantis. And I got to see myself in a masculine form towards the end of that cycle. And so the contract in this cycle is with the feminine, and it's with the female vehicle. It was a pretty deep event. And a lot of people that are here now are either working things out or continuing contracts from another time, whether it's Lemuria or Atlantis. Or mostly for this time, it's Atlantis, because we're really connected to Atlantis right now, especially with the tech that's happening. The Atlantean lessons and karma are very present. So, this is what I wanted to say. Magdalene becomes the serpent. You often see Lilith or Magdalene with a serpent. Magdalene becomes the serpent, the serpentine goddess force, as she completes the mysteries of death and resurrection in Scorpio. That's what this means. I wrote down that this is a cosmic feminine Christianity. And I say that word not lightly because it can be a real turnoff to a lot of people, but I'm saying it for those who can feel it. It's cosmic feminine Christianity, meaning it's cosmic feminine Christ or Christos. And it's the feminine mysteries that are coming into embodiment, full embodiment at this time. And it will be a while because the earth is going to go through so many different phases, but they're seated and they're growing. So we talked about woman's voice, the Magdalene voice controlling the principles and the powers and principalities. We talked about Evangelize. I'm going to just go really quickly and see if there's any last thing. Yeah, so what I was shown, I kind of cut off with it, and I won't take it very much further, but when I saw, like, the whole thing with the, exorcism and how that's growing in its popularity and how everyone's pointing the finger, these pagans and these people, be careful about that. Be on the lookout for it, and look at the visage and the aura of where it's coming from, and just listen with your intuition. Don't give your energy to anything that's gonna pull a fast one. That's what happens in big movements. That's what happened in World War II. Very, very intelligent people. Evil loves moral depravity. Evil works through the weakened minds and evil of the fallen forces, but needs a human container. So that's why we do this work. There are evil forces, and I meant to say that as we're talking about exorcism. There is real evil, and there actually really is exorcism. So I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, but it was used against women very seriously, and it was used at the time of the Inquisition and the Crusades. I had written down The Hammer of Witches, which is a book that was written about some of the certain orders and their feelings about women during the witch hunts. All right. So Magdalene discovers her inner security and power in these mysteries. Just know that we're living in times of huge, huge change, huge change. I mean, if you can't feel it already, it's not a joke. I feel even today doing this video, the energy that's all around me, it's a new, I haven't even felt this frequency before. When I'm speaking, there is there's like a dam. There's like of water that wants to come through, and I'm actually holding it back. But that's how there's an urgency. We're awakening the divine feminine principle in the human race. All this esoteric and metaphysical aside, all of it aside in plain language, we need to learn how to love. We need to learn how to create. We need to learn how to recognize through the eyes of wisdom what love. We need to not misuse love. We need to not hurt people. We need to not be a war-torn planet. We need to learn how to not jump into things without taking a step back and really looking. This is what that means to awaken the divine. The divine feminine principle is the creative principle and the creative imagination. If we misuse that force, we are creating our reality at all times. All right. I'm gonna we talked about Mars and Pluto, hell, the hell world, the underworld. All right. And also to say, oh, I forgot something. I have to put this in. Okay, I'm gonna finish. I talked about the Vatican, so I'm just gonna say something because I just put occult wisdom is nothing without human experience. Yeah, that carries out initiation. Like the wisdom and all of this, it has to be linked to a genuine, stabilized um, sound current so that it carries the transmission of truth and not the misuse or the harnessing and hijacking. What happened was after I had gone through the whole rosary thing, first I saw the videos and how prolific they were everywhere. And I saw there is that thing happening in the church where there's this more far right rising up, and that holds seeds of something that's not desirable. And I'm not putting down any politician or even right or left politically, but there is a faction that was the shadow side of the beginning of the church, and it's never left it. And it's trying to be worked out right now. So there's an aggression and an anger and an anti-feminine sentiment that's brewing. That is a problem. Also, so what I don't know how this came to me, but I was told that I needed to look up like the church and the new age or something like that. And so I did. And I found the document that was released by the Vatican in 2002. This is not to put down the Vatican or in any way. I've been there many times. I've been there a few times, not many, 3. It's the art, the Sistine Chapel and every that museum there. It's like, and also there's some stuff there. I know there's a lot of talk about other things, but it's a powerful place. They put out in 2002 a statement about the new age where it covered everything from, it really focused, I believe, on theosophy, and but it had to do with theosophy, like manifesting all of the things that are considered. But theosophy was considered the beginning of the New Age, even though there was before that there was Rosicrucianism and Hermeticism. All were many hundred years before that, even going back obviously to ancient Egypt. But there was a renewal of that at the beginning of the 20th century, and with Helena Blavatsky and and many others, many. But she had a very significant contribution with the Secret Doctrine and Isis Unveiled and all the others. So that this is very critically addressed, very item by item. Like they do a good job. They've got some good writers and scholars there because they leave no stone unturned. But this is just what I was shown because of my work and because of my work with archetypes and the astrological, astrology, all of it is not alchemy, is not going anywhere. And I have to be true to that. My work right now, for the church would consider it to be heretical. I am a heretic in the eyes of of especially all these people on the right. Like it's crazy. I mean, they're calling it out too. Yoga, they're saying anyone who does yoga or Reiki or any of these things is demonic. And that's not in the document. But what a lot of, church type folk are saying now, truthfully, all of it can be used for the darkness, all of it. That saying the devil's in the cards, it's true. The saying it's addiction and it's false gods and it's idolatry. That's the shadow side. However, the true metaphysical teachings, the true teachings of Magdalene, which is what I'm most interested in, the true, we've been working with astrology since the very beginning of this work. My work in astrology started as a child. That is not going to go anywhere. And I would never compromise this to be anything else. Never. The feminine were considered the witches because they held a lot of it. And at the same time, there was a lot of false paganism and a lot of crazy stuff. So obviously, this is what I'll say about the church in writing this. Trying to think of I think they addressed like the Alice Bailey, and there was many things. I'm going to speed this up though, but it addressed everything about the new age and why it was not acceptable. So, and then I knew right then and there, it was a big wake up call just to remember it all, not to be at war or battle with anything, because I'm very, even much connected to it. And it was funny. I was talking to my father and I said, Dad, he said, my parents are Catholic. I said, I could never go to church because I said, I'm a heretic. I said, I'm so sorry. Because he knew I was doing the rosary and stuff. And we were laughing actually. And he said, no, Shannon, this really, really took me aback. He said, Shannon, they will catch up to you. And I couldn't believe, coming from my father, who isn't involved in any of this kind of work, but he knows what I'm talking about. And he knows my history, my past, my whole life. So when he said, and then my mom said, she said, nobody's perfect. And she's like, you should hear about some of the secrets they hold or she was just like right there also saying, no. Most people understand what's going on. However, just know there is some truth to it. So when people are saying, oh, that's demons or this or that, well, of course you can tell. If you if you forget prayer and the heart and the inner plane and you're bowing to pictures or images or relying on things addictively or using them in black magic, no, that's bad. But this work here is about archetypes and the creative imagination, the divine feminine principle. That's what I needed. I wanted to finish with when I saw that document, it was just a reminder. You can't be too quick to think people are your friends because they might be the first person to put you up there on that plank or burn you at the stake. And we all, like most of us that have this have some understanding of what that means. So that being said, I'm so grateful to be here. And we covered a lot of things. I want to say that this is the time to really, really get it together, to know who's running your force, to pray to whatever God you find is your truth. and reflecting the divine image. The Christos comes in, can be God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the Mother, and in the angelics that are there to facilitate the luminous beings that are, and even our own spiritual lineage is always there. So we just ask that all of this wisdom is in the name of peace. You know, the rosary, the original meaning of the rosary is to pray for world peace, and that's what it's for. With everything going on, I still pray for world peace, and I pray for the new civilization and the new age to dawn, the dawn of the new age, the new dawn. Just take a moment to breathe. If there's anyone that needs prayers from you right now, or love or understanding, if there's anything that you have that you feel you're ready to let go of, let it be now in the frequency of this prayer and this light that's being held by many, many beautiful beings, all in service of the one. To love yourself, to forgive yourself, to understand the beautiful work between Taurus and Scorpio, Venus and Pluto, and what this has given us today to really understand why love, why honoring marriage if you should be in one and it's good, why honoring the reproductive force and all that comes with it. And so last time we did Hail Mary, and I finished it with, "For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Amen." And that actually goes to the Our Father. When I saw it, I was laughing. But for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. The great soul is who we are. For thine is the kingdom, the power of Scorpio, and the glory of the realms of Taurus. I bow to all of you with amen, amen, amen. I'm going to take a peek down. I'll just remind you, please give the video a thumbs up, please subscribe, all those things. I'm going to be, you know, there's been some delays on this channel for the past 5 years, so I really appreciate you subscribing, sharing the videos, coming to the live streams, checking in, commenting, all of it. Let people know about this. As you can tell, it's very rich and it's very generously being given through the Divine Mother. The links to Light Body Tantra will be up till Sunday, the 12th, are underneath. Divine Feminine Wisdom School, we're open for enrollment. Lindsay just like cleared her schedule. If you want to work in this in a very serious and committed way, it's a real school. You can sign up for an appointment with her. And I'm going to just take a look down now. All right. Okay, right. Important. Timonium, Shanna. Hi, Neil. Nice to see you. Trish, nice to see you. It's so funny. I saw, so nice to see you. It's nice to see everyone. So I'm going to, thank you for sharing this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just know if you're really going through it. I want to say, if you're really going through it, get humble and get powerful. You can be powerful and humble at the same time. Rely on a force that's bigger than you. Find God or find Goddess. It's so there. Prayer is sacred union. Use it. Get familiar with it. So those things that we practice, we own. That's why in working with mantra, when you work with mantra, the forces embedded in that, they become part of your natural gift because you own it, because you practice with it. You repeat it over and over, those things. Think about an athlete training for the Olympics. You think about a ballerina. I grew up in ballet. You do the same bar exercises every single day, your whole career and after. They never change. Why? Because the mind creates a memory of what is good technique, what is proper, and what is needed to excel and shine in whatever you do. And so that being said, I'll close out with namaste. Until I will see you next time for our video with Lilith. And I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you. Thank you.